Marvel, fishing in the skies. Starting with the Ghost Swordsman legacy, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. The surrounding strong winds stopped the moment the vortex appeared. The captain of the universe, who was desperately mobilizing the power of the eternal land, also stood still at this moment. His state at this moment was different from before. Although he was restrained by the soul-devouring hand just now, at least his thoughts could still move. But now, he seemed to feel that the whole world had stopped, and his thoughts had become dull. Qin Luo's bloody vortex was not just as simple as the power of the soul-devouring demon sealing slash, it also contained the power of the soul-destroying hand. The power generated by the fusion of the two forces was definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. To be honest, this was also the first time he combined the two skills into one. Originally thought there would be some mistakes, but he didn't expect the effect to be so good. Qin Luo decisively named this move, Soul-Destroying Demon Sealing Slash. As the vortex began to rotate, the captain of the universe was also sucked in front of Qin Luo. Under the control of the soul-destroying demon sealing slash, the captain of the universe was like a fool, dazed. Let Qin Luo quickly drain away his blood and vitality. Chapter 504, Eternal Action, Blood Demon Middle. Slaying the Sky Captain originally thought that death was the most terrible thing, but now he knows that death is not terrible. But the process of death is terrible, and his vitality is too strong. It is really difficult to die. Qin Luo used all his strength to perform the soul-destroying demon sealing slash, and the demon blood meteorite in the sky absorbed the blood of the captain of the universe without any reservation, and the blood ball became larger and larger. Now it can be released completely, but Qin Luo did not release it actively, but he continued to gather the blood balls of the demon blood meteorite. After all, it has not reached the limit. He was going to make a limit and gather a wave of strength. Anyway, the blood can return to his body in the end, and not a bit will be wasted. The body of the captain of the universe began to shrink and wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. This kind of shrinkage and withering is irreversible. No matter how tenacious his vitality is, no matter how strong his recovery ability is, it is still impossible to change this shrinkage and withering, because this is fundamentally absorbing his source of life, and when the source of life is sucked dry, it is the time for the captain of the universe to die. Time passed by every second. After about 10 minutes, Captain Universe completely turned into a dead tree, without any life breath. Qin Luo's eyes flashed red, and the next moment, the vortex in the palm of his hand disappeared without a trace. The moment the vortex disappeared, a breeze blew from the ground. The breeze blew over Captain Universe's body. He immediately turned into ashes and dissipated on this eternal continent. His body had been completely destroyed, and his soul also dissipated along with his body because of excessive blood absorption. The Eternal Guardian, who helped him kill countless powerful enemies, finally died in Qin Luo's hands, and his death was quite miserable. In the starry sky, in a strange magic circle, the magic circle was densely covered with special runes, and Eternity, who was covered in golden light, sat in the middle of the magic circle. His body was constantly shining. Those lights were not scattered everywhere, but gathered on the magic circle, forming a pentagram pattern. On the 5 corners of the pentagram, there were several twisted characters that seemed to be drawn with fingernails. Eternity, Infinity, Annihilation, Death, and Star Devouring. The 3 characters of Eternity, Infinity, and Annihilation flashed with a faint light, and they flowed and converged with each other, completely in a state of mutual exchange. Eternity's state at this time was also much stronger than usual. The golden light that was originally extremely shining, at this time, it was even more dreamy and shining. Waves of terrifying aura emerged from Eternity. But the next second, the aura on his body was completely converged. That kind of convergence was extremely thorough, as if it had disappeared. But soon, the dazzling golden light appeared again. The frequency of the golden light flashing and convergence became slower and slower, and the number of convergences gradually decreased. This process only took 3 or 2 minutes. Eternity seemed to be digesting something steadily, which led to the current state, and the light on the pentagram began to spread towards the 2 dim corners. The symbols that spread were death and star devouring. At this moment, Yang Eng suddenly opened his eyes. He seemed to feel something, and his eyes involuntarily looked towards the direction of the eternal land. There was a slight fluctuation in his cold eyes, but the fluctuation was fleeting, and Yang Eng closed his eyes again. The golden light around him suddenly burst out, and then turned into countless threads and fell on the pentagram. The spreading light also became faster. Speaking of it, the relationship between Captain Universe and Yang Eng is completely relative to the relationship between the Silver Surfer and the Devourer of Planets. Of course, Yang Eng would not be as indifferent to the death of Captain Universe as it seems on the surface. His murderous intention towards Qin Luo in his heart was almost raised to the extreme, but Yang Eng suppressed it perfectly. He now has more important things, and it is only one step away from completion. In front of this matter, the death of Captain Universe is not so important. Qin Luo did not know Yang Eng's current state, nor did he know that Yang Eng had left the Eternal Land at this time. He was still absorbing the vitality from Captain Universe. This vitality is really extraordinary. Even if Qin Luo wanted to digest so much at once, it would not be so easy. Suddenly, Qin Luo felt the blood in his body tremble, and then the strongest move after the second awakening emerged in his mind. The real awakening, blood demon killing the sky. In an instant, the blood that had not been digested turned into a vortex in his body, and it was faintly seen that the phantom that looked like a blood demon was wandering in the blood. Qin Luo really wanted to release the blood demon killing the sky at this moment to experience this so-called most violent second awakening. But in terms of destructive power, the blood demon killing the sky is definitely the strongest among the 4 Ghost Sword's second awakenings, but the consumption of releasing this move is definitely not small, and he still has to fight with Eternity. The blood demon killing the sky move should be saved for use against Eternity. With the understanding of the blood demon killing the sky, the blood power in Qin Luo's body seemed to have a solid-state hard drive, and the storage capacity expanded all of a sudden. Those blood that had not been absorbed clean were absorbed in an instant. Qin Luo opened his eyes and felt the indescribable feeling in his heart as he felt the extremely full blood in his body. Finally, I realized the first secondary awakening. With the promotion of a secondary awakening, the other secondary awakenings will not be too far away. The 4 Ghost Swords will affect each other, and Qin Luo can clearly feel it at this time. The other 3 forces in his body have also made further progress. If there is a little more help, it is not impossible to awaken and comprehend all of them in an instant. Qin Luo couldn't help but look at the twisted and broken Benedict Cumberbatch clone and the dull-looking Wanda clone. Now he is quite looking forward to how much power the ghosts and gods can finally give back to him after absorbing the dark power. But before that, there is one thing to be solved. It is impolite not to reciprocate. Yang Eng has given her so many gifts, and he also gave back. Qin Luo is going to rebuild Yang Eng's home to express his gratitude. Chapter 2. This is really a familiar feeling. Feeling the rich vitality brought by the blood plunder, Qin Luo couldn't help but sigh. He now found that Eternity is also a good person. It's even better than Mephisto back then. Not to mention the benefits brought by Wanda's clone and Benedict Cumberbatch's clone. I never expected that this little jerk who called himself Captain of the Universe would have such a rich blood power. In terms of vitality alone, it is definitely far superior to Mephisto. If all the blood on his body is plundered, it is definitely a sure thing to deal with the skill of Blood Demon killing the sky. Help him complete 2 awakenings in one fell swoop. If Eternity knew that the people he sent out not only did not cause trouble to Qin Luo, but instead gave him great help, I wonder if he would be angry to death. Qin Luo looked at Captain of the Universe with a glowing look. There was no politeness at all. Raising his hand, the rich blood power gathered in the palm of his hand. Captain of the Universe hasn't recovered yet. I felt a strong suction force enveloping my body. The next moment, I flew in front of Qin Luo involuntarily. At the same time, the blood in my body began to gather towards my head uncontrollably. Captain Universe struggled desperately and wanted to swing his knife to cut off the arm of the person in front of him, but there was no way. He was imprisoned by an invisible force and could only watch, unable to move his body at all. At the moment when his head was almost filled with blood, a strong force gushed out from Qin Luo's hand. Bang! The next second, Captain Universe's head exploded like a watermelon. Blood spurted out, and the scene was simply spectacular. Captain Universe's headless body stood in place, but there was no intention of falling down. Qin Luo narrowed his eyes slightly, a hint of blush appeared on his face, and his scarlet eyes became brighter. The blood of this Captain Universe is simply too replenishing. Chapter 503 Skills 2 in 1, Soul-Destroying and Demon-Sealing. Qin Luo took a deep breath to calm down his restless blood and chi. If it weren't for the current situation, encountering an enemy like Captain Universe, he really couldn't bear to kill the other party, raise him up and constantly absorb the other party's blood and chi. It's just like a mobile blood bottle. It's beautiful to think about it. It's a pity that in this situation, it can only kill the chicken to get the eggs. Qin Luo came back to his senses, and the Captain of the Universe's head had grown out again. That scene was really disgusting. It's not like the big devil, which grows directly. Instead, it grows up little by little at a speed visible to the naked eye. First it was the head of an infant, and then it slowly grew bigger. Of course, it just looked slow. In fact, in less than 2 or 3 seconds, this guy's head grew back to its original appearance. The most disgusting thing is the little bastard in his infant period. His head is still disfigured. It looks extremely uncomfortable. Qin Luo secretly decided in his heart that when he kills the opponent later, he will definitely not start from the head. Captain Universe's face was a little pale at this time, and there was a trace of fear in his heart. He was not a fool, nor was he slow to react. He could feel that in just a few fights, his vitality was drained by the opponent. If this continued, it would not take long before his vitality would be drained by the opponent. In that case, he would really have no capital to fight him. Gritting his teeth, Captain Universe held the 2 swords horizontally in front of his chest, and the light on the blades began to spread all over his body. He was ready to use the special power on the blades to block the opponent's vitality. It didn't matter even if the 2 swords he was proud of would be scrapped later. Otherwise, if he died, he would have nothing. Qin Luo didn't care about Captain Universe's actions. After seeing him recover, he jumped high and chopped down the long sword in his hand fiercely. Bang! Seeing this, Captain Universe quickly raised his sword to block, but he only felt a terrifying force coming, and then the blood-red light wave spread. Captain Universe couldn't help but sink deep into the ground. Qin Luo raised his eyebrows. The blood energy he absorbed just now did not reach his expectations. It seemed that something blocked a part of it. Qin Luo soon noticed the faint light shrouding Captain Universe. Just now, he thought it was the other party who gave himself some buff, but he didn't expect that he wanted to stop him from absorbing blood energy. The idea is good, but unfortunately, it is not enough to block his blood absorption power with a little power. Qin Luo's eyes flashed red. Then a huge blood circle appeared under his feet, and mysterious runes condensed around the blood circle. It was one of the signature skills of the Berserker. The blood energy burst. The next moment, the terrifying blood energy gushed out and directly sprayed Captain Universe on the ground. At the same time, the blood energy also tore the layer of light on his body. Captain Universe's face changed drastically, and he wanted to move, but he couldn't do anything now, because Qin Luo's next move had already hit him. Collapse of mountains and cracking of the earth. The blood energy directly tore him into pieces in midair. It turned into a blood mist and drifted around. This time, Qin Luo absorbed more powerful blood power than before. The restless blood made Qin Luo's red eyes shine more and more. But the speed of Captain Universe's body recovery slowed down. Just 2 or 3 seconds ago, his head recovered. Now it took a full minute to completely recover to its original state. His face became paler, the fear in his eyes became more and more intense. The thought of running away first floated in his heart, but thinking of eternity, his thoughts were suppressed. Instead, his mind turned quickly, thinking quickly about how to delay this terrifying human in front of him and save himself. Qin Luo didn't care what Captain Universe thought. He was going to come directly with a big wave, drain the opponent directly. Otherwise, the time for resurrection will be extended again, and he doesn't have so much time to waste with him. Qin Luo's blood was surging all over his body. The terrifying blood formed a blood ball on his head. The blood ball slowly rose to the sky, and the terrifying blood power enveloped the entire area. The terrifying suction came from the blood. The life force that turned into blood was almost transmitted from the 9 orifices of the Captain of the Universe. The Captain of the Universe panicked. He mobilized all his strength and spread it in all directions. In an instant, the mountains and rivers shook, and the whole space became restless as his power spread. After all, this is the eternal land. As the guardian of eternity, the Captain of the Universe cannot mobilize all the power of the eternal land, but he can mobilize part of it. Originally, the Captain of the Universe did not want to do this. He felt that it was his shame to mobilize the power of eternity to defeat a human. But now his life is about to die, and he can no longer care about so much. As the eternal land was restless, Qin Luo clearly felt a pressure falling on him. He seemed to be disliked by the world, and there was malice all around him. Qin Luo frowned. This feeling was not good, but if the Captain of the Universe was killed, everything would be over. Qin Luo slowly raised his hand, and the blood and energy condensed into a huge vortex in his palm. Chapter 3. The dark power mixed with the power of chaos magic is really too complicated. Once Wanda absorbs and assimilates its power, what if it becomes like this? I will have nightmares at night. After thinking about it, Qin Luo came up with an idea. His faith moved, and the marks of Saya, Kja and Kazan on the ghost hand flashed. 3 ghosts appeared in front of Qin Luo. Greetings, Lord. The 3 ghosts did not show any dissatisfaction on their faces for interrupting their eating. Their expressions were respectful, but Kazan's respect was a little careless. But it can be understood. After all, Kazan is the real first ghost god. Even the Dark Monarch cannot exert his true power, unless he breaks through the limit of the Dark Monarch, opens the door to the underworld, and completely releases the power of the sky. Qin Luo didn't care. Kazan didn't rebel against him for the time being, so it didn't matter if he was arrogant. Don't fight with those 5 guys for food. The dark power in her body is quite abundant. Devour the dark power in her body completely. But don't hurt her own power. Is that okay? Qin Luo pointed at the controlled Wanda clone and said. The 3 ghosts nodded in unison, and then drilled into the body of Wanda's clone. At this time, Wanda's clone was almost crazy when she heard that Qin Luo was going to devour her dark power. But there was no way. Now she was the fish and Qin Luo was the knife. Soon the ghosts and gods began to wreak havoc in Wanda's clone, and Wanda's clone couldn't help but let out a shrill howl. The dark chaos magic power in the body kept churning, and it desperately attacked Qin Luo's seal. Qin Luo saw this and immediately formed a sword finger, and the power of Shushan burst out. The power in Wanda's clone was completely blocked, and her soul was also blocked at the same time. The 2 blockades were connected to form a seal. It was more powerful than the seal when Mephisto was sealed. With the power of Wanda's clone, it is impossible to break through. The moment the seal was completed, Wanda's clone was in a dazed state, and there was no color in his eyes. There was no reaction to the rampage of the ghosts and gods in his body. Without the hindrance of chaos magic, the speed of the ghosts and gods swallowing was obviously accelerated. And Doctor Strange on the other side also swallowed up most of his dark power. After Qin Luo dealt with the 2 people, he immediately decided to find eternity first. As for the ghosts and gods, they would not be lost. When they swallowed up the dark power, they would naturally return to his body through the mark. However, just when Qin Luo was about to leave, a red figure rushed from a distance. In the blink of an eye, it blocked him. Qin Luo looked at the red shadow. His eyes couldn't help but raise, and couldn't help but say, "What kind of world is this? When did the little bastard become Eternity's subordinate?" Deadpool, or the Captain of the Universe under Eternity, didn't care about Qin Luo's words. Instead, he looked at the 2 half-dead people with great disdain and said, "Lord Eternity trusts you so much, but I didn't expect you 2 to be such a waste." Wanda's clone and Benedict Cumberbatch's clone didn't react at all to Captain Universe's ridicule. There was no way. One was half-dead and the other was sealed. What kind of reaction could they expect? Captain Universe exuded a magnificent golden light. The next moment, 2 beams of terrifying power bombarded the 2. But before they could get close, They were blasted away by the power of ghosts and gods. "Are you Deadpool?" Qin Luo looked at Captain Universe and asked. "I didn't expect you to know the owner of this body." "Unfortunately, I'm not the Deadpool you said. I am the guardian of Lord Eternity." Captain Universe's words were full of arrogance, as if being the guardian of eternity was so great. But, in this world, it seems to be really great. The identity of the guardian of the gods is enough to make him proud. Chapter 502 Eternity. "Good man." Qin Luo looked at Captain Universe, who was pretending to be X. A faint smile appeared on his face. "Others fear the gods and the guardians of the gods, but he is really not afraid, otherwise, he would not have come to trouble eternity." The guy opposite seemed to have a bad brain, otherwise, he would not have been able to think clearly about such a simple thing. "It's just eternity's #1 lackey. What's the exchange?" "Where is your master?" "I've come to kill him, but he doesn't show up. Sending some rotten sweet potatoes and bird eggs to deal with me is really funny." Qin Luo said this. Captain Universe's face changed immediately. At the same time, a terrifying breath burst out from his body. As the saying goes, a dragon has a reverse scale, and those who touch it will die. Qin Luo's words directly hit Captain Universe's reverse scale. "It would be strange if this guy didn't explode. I will make a specimen of your soul and body and put it in the temple to let you know the consequences of blaspheming the gods." After that, Captain Universe jumped in front of Qin Luo, pulled out a long knife from behind with both hands, and slashed at Qin Luo fiercely. The blade contained an extremely sharp aura. Judging from the power that Captain Universe had, it was definitely more than one level stronger than Wanda's clone and Benedict Cumberbatch's clone. This guy was probably not much worse than the hungry devourer of planets. It could be said that he was infinitely close to being a god. Qin Luo jumped back slightly, and then slashed with the long sword in his hand. Suddenly, a sword energy flew out from the blade, tearing the earth apart and heading straight for Captain Universe in front of him. Captain Universe did not give in at all, and was in a head-on confrontation with Qin Luo. Bang! The sharp double sword slashed on the sword energy, making a loud noise, and then a dazzling white light burst out. Then something unexpected happened to Qin Luo. His sword energy actually dissipated in the opponent's hand, turning into sharp sword energy that floated everywhere. Qin Luo thought that the opponent could block his attack, but he never expected this result. His sword energy was actually broken by the opponent. There must be something wrong with his two swords. It should be a magic similar to the magic-breaking magic, or something strange. Qin Luo was surprised, and the captain of the universe was even more dumbfounded. Others didn't know, but he knew clearly that his slash just now was quite skillful. The moves that Eternity had greatly admired, even the magic of the gods, would not have a very good result when facing this move. But just breaking the sword energy of the human in front of him, he felt very strenuous, and even felt a soreness and numbness in the tiger's mouth. He was almost directly shattered. What kind of monster is this? However, no matter how huge the fluctuations in his heart are, as the guardian of eternity, the captain of the universe still pretended to be disdainful on the surface, shook the sword energy left on the knife and said, "Human, is your power only this? I am very disappointed. You are really bad at pretending." Qin Luo rolled his eyes, and before the captain of the universe finished speaking, he waved the long knife in his hand and rushed up. "Facing such a pretender, you have to beat him hard. Beat him to death." The sharp aura around him changed instantly, and extreme violence and bright red power emanated from Qin Luo's body. At the same time, the long sword in Qin Luo's hand also turned into two. One was a normal long sword, and the other was a long sword condensed from scarlet blood. Captain Universe didn't dare to talk nonsense now, mobilized all the strength of his body, crossed his two swords and had a head-on confrontation with Qin Luo. Boom! The terrifying air wave burst out from all around the two people, and the majestic power caused the land to crack, the wind to blow, and there was a faint flash of lightning in the sky. It was a scene of the end of the world. Hissing sparks kept flashing under the friction of the blade, and the next second, Captain Universe flew backwards. He flew hundreds of meters and broke countless trees before he stopped. Qin Luo did not chase immediately, but stood there, his eyebrows slightly raised, as if he was experiencing something. And Captain Universe, who was 100 meters away, slowly stood up, The moment he stood up, his torn body and broken arms completely recovered. However, the clothes on his body completely turned into beggar's clothes under the impact of energy, revealing the ugly face of Zhao Jianjian. Chapter 4. For my child, you must die. A dark red light flashed in the eyes of Wanda's clone, and an invisible force surged towards Qin Luo. In an instant, Qin Luo felt that the environment around him seemed to have changed in some way. It was obvious that Wanda wanted to change Qin Luo through her own ability. It was like in a certain clip, Wanda's clone crippled a sonic superpower with a glance. However, how could Qin Luo be fooled? Facing this kind of power to modify reality, he was no stranger. I saw lightning flashing around Qin Luo, and the next moment, a huge phantom of Thor burst out from Qin Luo's head. The terrifying power of lightning and thunder waves spread in all directions. The power of the modification just now dissipated without a trace under the impact of the wave explosion. Wanda's figure retreated again and again, with black and red blood faintly oozing from the corners of her eyes, and her face was full of shock. The cold face of Benedict Cumberbatch's clone also changed a little at this time, and eternity summoned them over. The two of them were not without conflicts, and they also fought each other. The result was a draw. Neither could do anything to the other. Moreover, he was quite afraid of Wanda's clone's power to modify reality. If it weren't for his third eye, the Eye of Agamotto, he would probably have been killed by Wanda's clone. But the human in front of him directly broke through Wanda's clone's chaos magic with his tyrannical strength. What a terrifying power! For a moment, Benedict Cumberbatch's clone regretted responding to Eternity's call, coming to this world, and helping him fight the enemy. Think about it. The existence that can make Eternity temporarily a void must be powerful and cannot be underestimated. The more he thought about it, the colder Benedict Cumberbatch felt in his heart. But now he's on a pirate ship. It's difficult to get off, let alone if he runs away now. Let's not talk about whether he can escape or not. Even if he does, Eternity will not let him go. There is no way now. He can only go down this path to the end. Gritting his teeth, Benedict Cumberbatch said to Wanda Cumberbatch beside him, "The opponent is very strong. Go all out, otherwise you will die." After that, a mystical magic circle appeared in Benedict Cumberbatch's left hand, and black smoke came out of his right hand. Two completely different powers, mystical magic and dark magic, burst out. The space around Benedict Cumberbatch became a little distorted. The strange eyes were spinning around, and strange power was emanating. Wanda Cumberbatch also burst out with all her strength at this time. Dark red light flashed around her body. The meridians in her body seemed to be affected by this light. The whole person was covered with dark red meridians, and she looked like a hellish devil. Qin Luo looked at the two people who burst out with all their strength and didn't hesitate. The ancient lightsaber in his hand turned into a long sword. He rushed to the front of Benedict Cumberbatch's clone in one step. Benedict Cumberbatch was shocked when he saw this, and quickly took action. The dark magic in his hand was compatible with the mystical magic, turning into a dark magic circle, and directly hit Qin Luo. At the same time, the eyes at the center of his eyebrows also burst out with gray-white light. The corruption aura that was slightly similar to the aura of death condensed on the gray light and turned into a ray, rushing towards Qin Luo following the dark magic circle. However, facing the opponent's attack, Qin Luo's expression did not change, and he stretched out his ghost hand to grab Benedict Cumberbatch directly. As for the dark magic circle, the corruption ray and the like, Qin Luo didn't take it seriously at all. The moment the ghost hand touched the dark magic circle, the dark power on the magic circle burst out. At the same time, the ghost mark on the ghost hand flashed a faint light at this moment. The dark power that was violent and terrifying in the last second immediately calmed down the moment the ghost mark flashed. Then it directly merged into the ghost hand. As for the ray full of corruption power, the ghost mark of Rakshasa shot out several purple beams. Bang! With a muffled sound, the corruption ray exploded directly. Seeing that his two killer moves did not last a round in the hands of the opponent, Benedict Cumberbatch's face turned pale. He hurriedly wanted to attack again, but it was too late. Qin Luo's ghost hand grabbed his head. The ghost mark shone brightly at this moment, and there seemed to be a strange cheering sound. The clone of Benedict Cumberbatch was completely frozen in place, and the breath on his body began to become extremely unstable. The dark breath continued to come out. At the same time, the power of the secret magic was expelled from his body. His mouth was crooked, his eyes were slanted, and his limbs were twisted strangely. The scene was really as weird as it could be. The crooked eyes of the clone of Benedict Cumberbatch were filled with fear, but now he couldn't move at all. The 8 ghosts and gods are coming. This kind of treatment is only experienced by me, and Dormammu didn't have the opportunity to experience it. In fact, you should feel lucky. Qin Luo felt the feedback of the dark power in his body, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. These ghosts and gods didn't have a meal, but today they can have a meal with an open belly. Especially Brosh, he is almost starving crazy. This series of actions is slow to say, but in fact it only takes 1 or 2 seconds. It looked like Qin Luo just grabbed the head of Benedict Cumberbatch's clone with his ghost hand. Wanda's clone on the other side had just gathered the power of dark chaos magic. Chapter 501 CO Wanda's clone. Captain Universe. When Wanda's clone came back to her senses, she was completely stunned. She only had time to gather strength, and Benedict Cumberbatch's clone was completely destroyed. Is it really that exaggerated? In fact, it's no wonder that Wanda was surprised. Normally, even if they are not as powerful as those gods, they can still fight against them, and it is not impossible to inflict minor injuries on them. The reason why Benedict Cumberbatch was killed instantly was purely due to attribute suppression. Now Qin Luo is a veritable Dark Lord, except for Jiger, who is almost out of control. The dark power is just a younger brother in front of him. The ghosts and gods can easily devour it. If Benedict Cumberbatch's clone used the power of mystical magic, Qin Luo might need to break it with force. But he released a mixed dark power, or even mainly dark power. That is like giving the ghosts and gods a calcium milk biscuit. Crunchy. Feeling the dark power that the ghosts and gods in his body constantly feed back, Qin Luo's mood became even better. The dark power in Benedict Cumberbatch's body is really abundant. It has only been a short while, and the dark power in his body has increased significantly. At that time, the dark power hidden by the ghosts and gods will be exploited, and maybe Jiger will be taken down in one fell swoop. Qin Luo turned around and looked at Wanda's clone with a horrified face, revealing a smile that he thought was kind. Wanda's clone's pupils shrank instantly, and then raised her hand, and a dark red energy body smashed towards Qin Luo. It was also at this moment that the land around Qin Luo turned into a swamp. After completing these, Wanda's clone turned around and ran. There was no hesitation at all. Now she has only one thought, that is to return to her own universe. This universe is too dangerous, and her own universe is still better. Even if she will be troubled by eternity in the future, that is a matter for the future. Now it is most important to stay alive. Facing the quality of Wanda's clone, Qin Luo leaped up and turned into a giant sword, instantly breaking free from the control of the swamp and cutting the dark red energy ball into 2 sections. The next moment, he stood in front of Wanda's clone. When Wanda's clone saw Qin Luo blocking the way, she didn't think about it, and the dark chaos magic in her hand gathered again, trying to force Qin Luo back. But Qin Luo grabbed her arm first. At the same time, the surging sword energy poured into Wanda's clone's body, blocking all the energy in her body. In an instant, Wanda became an ordinary person. Qin Luo felt the energy in Wanda's clone and frowned slightly. Chapter 5. As soon as these words came out, a man and a woman below suddenly raised their heads, their eyes full of extreme desire. Their bodies trembled because of the shock of their minds. Without further ado, the two stood up directly, and black and dark red magic energy burst out one after another. Their figures quickly disappeared in the temple. Yang Eng looked at the place where the two disappeared. He couldn't help but mutter to himself, "It's almost there, it's almost there, give me a little more time, and I will be able to finish it soon." After that, a golden light flashed in his hand. Soon, a man wearing a red tights and with a faint blue light in his eyes appeared in front of him. If Qin Luo was present, he would find that the person who appeared in front of Yang Eng at this time was actually the immortal little bastard. But the little bastard at this time was not as nonsensical as in the original plot. Instead, he looked calm. "Lord Yang Eng." Deadpool knelt on the ground and spoke in a low voice. "Universe, if those two rubbish fail, You take action. It would be best if you can kill that human being. If not, then hold him back. Do you understand? I don't want anything to happen to you. When facing Deadpool, Eternity did not look superior, but was very considerate. He looked like an elder brother. Lord Eternity, rest assured. As your guardian, I will definitely kill that presumptuous human being, Deadpool said with a solemn expression and great seriousness. Eternity nodded with satisfaction. The next moment, the golden light all over his body dissipated and disappeared in front of Deadpool. A gleam of light flashed in Deadpool's eyes, and he drew a long knife from behind. His figure flashed and disappeared in this extremely gorgeous palace. After Qin Luo burst out all his strength, he felt an unprecedented sense of pleasure. He couldn't help but let out a long roar. In an instant, the terrifying power soared into the sky and swept across the entire eternal land. All the living things and plants around Qin Luo were impacted by this terrifying power and were annihilated one after another. Soon, everything within 100 meters of Qin Luo was turned into ruins. It was comfortable to do it on someone else's territory, and there was no need to worry about those messy things. But I don't know if it was an illusion. Qin Luo saw a look of relief in the eyes of those exaggerated creatures before they died. But Qin Luo didn't think much about it. Anyway, it didn't matter to him. The wave perception spread like a tide. Almost instantly, he felt the breath of eternity. In fact, the breath of eternity in this eternal land is like the sun, and it's hard for him not to sense it. Just wanted to transfer there through teleportation. It turned out that the space of the entire eternal land was completely blocked. If you want to perform teleportation, you have to completely break the space barrier around the eternal land. After a little thought, Qin Luo gave up the idea. Anyway, it's not far, just kill it directly. As soon as he said it, Qin Luo's figure flashed and rushed towards the location of eternity. However, the next second, Qin Luo felt two forces bombarding him. Qin Luo's eyes flashed, and the ancient short sword in his hand turned into a lightsaber. He bent down slightly, and the whole person was covered by the sword light. He did not dodge or evade, and directly met the two forces that were coming to kill him. One black and one dark red, the two forces collided with Qin Luo and dissipated directly. Qin Luo continued to move forward, and suddenly raised a lightsaber in his hand, and a sword light chopped forward. The next second, the scene in front of Qin Luo dissipated like water ripples, and the two slightly embarrassed figures dodged left and right. Pa Jun Sheng Longjai, Qin Luo hasn't used this skill for a while. After the second awakening, the power is indeed a world of difference. Qin Luo looked closely, and when he saw the figures of the man and the woman, he was a little confused. He couldn't help but say, "Stephen, Wanda?" That's right, the people standing in front of Qin Luo at this time were Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. It's just that the appearance of these two people is very different from before. Doctor Strange was wearing a black wizard robe, and behind him was not the magic cape, but a black cloak. There was a very strong dark breath on the cloak. If Qin Luo was not mistaken, this dark breath came from the dark dimension. But Dormammu in this world, the dark dimension has been swallowed by Qin Luo for nearly half. And the main body was annihilated and turned into a puppet, and finally destroyed. With the disappearance of Dormammu, the dark dimension should have disappeared. Why does this Benedict Cumberbatch have the breath of the dark dimension? This is very telling. And there is a third eye between his eyebrows, and that eye is full of evil feelings. People feel uncomfortable at a glance. Scarlet Witch Wanda is wearing a leather coat, with a strange decoration on her head, and exuding a dark red breath. It is very different from the bright red of chaos magic. It's just that this dark red breath also has the breath of chaos magic, and it is also mixed with other breaths. How to describe it? It's like pouring half a cup of ink into a glass of watermelon juice. Qin Luo frowned at Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, but soon his brows relaxed, and he probably knew how it could be. The Marvel world has never been a single universe. Instead, there are multiple universes. They should be Wanda and Benedict Cumberbatch from another world. He didn't know much about Wanda's situation, and he didn't know much about Scarlet Witch. He roughly understood what was going on with Benedict Cumberbatch. He had seen a story about an evil version of Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange in that world, Dormammu found him first. He valued Benedict Cumberbatch's magical potential, so he took him under his wing and became a dark wizard, and let him go to Kamar-Taj to play infernal affairs. In the end, Dormammu's plan succeeded. Doctor Strange successfully destroyed Kamar-Taj, and mastered the power of mystical magic. But Dormammu didn't expect that Benedict Cumberbatch, who mastered his own dark magic and Ancient One's mystical magic, was no longer under his control. In the end, Benedict Cumberbatch destroyed Dormammu and became the master of the Dark Dimension and Kamar-Taj in that world. He is quite powerful. It is definitely an existence beyond the level of the Father in the sky, but whether it has reached the level of God is unknown. However, Qin Luo can see that the Doctor Strange in front of him is definitely not a god-level existence. Otherwise he would not be forced back by the might of the Sword of Pa Jun Sheng Longjai. Chapter 500 Delicacies, Ghosts and Gods. Each Scarlet Witch's strength is similar to that of Doctor Strange. Basically, it is also an existence above the Father in the sky and below God. Facing these two people, Qin Luo was choking. Eternity is really good at finding. He actually found a clone from another universe. This is the rhythm of trying to make him unable to do it, but after thinking about it, this may also be an opportunity. Not completely absorbing the Dark Dimension has always been a pain in his heart. Now that the dark version of Doctor Strange has appeared, isn't it a good time to absorb the Dark Dimension? If you can take this opportunity to directly take down the old arrogant Jiger, it would be great. As for the Scarlet Witch, the energy in her body is definitely a great supplement for Wanda in this world, but double happiness is impossible. I don't know if it's because of the dark power. Wanda's clone's face has become a little unflattering. It's like being possessed by a demon. Thinking about the problem of absorbing the power of the two, Qin Luo's eyes changed. Looking at the dark version of Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange, it was as if looking at two plates of delicious food. Wanda's clone and Benedict Cumberbatch's clone shuddered at the same time. Qin Luo's eyes made them feel very bad and uncomfortable. Chapter 6. The last of the 5 Ebony Generals was completely dead. Seeing this, Benedict Cumberbatch sat down on the ground with cold sweat on his forehead. He couldn't help but secretly say that it was a close call. At the same time, he was secretly glad for the tip given by the Ancient One. If it weren't for the fact that the Ancient One had used the Time Stone to reflect part of his future before, including the necessary conditions for winning this battle, with their strength, they really were no match for Omnimo. After all, from the infinite future, their chances of winning were almost only 20 to 30%. This was the only result without casualties. Chapter 498. The 5 Ebony Generals were completely destroyed in the Eternal Land. Thanos was trapped in the mirror space and fought with the Ancient One. The two are now in a stalemate. Without a certain amount of time, it is impossible to tell the winner. Thanos, who has 2 Infinity Stones, is still difficult to win against the Ancient One who also has 2 Infinity Stones. Even if he has unleashed the special power of the Soul Stone, Thanos' invasion of the Earth this time is doomed to fail. His men have already been killed quickly by the three-party coalition forces. It won't be long before Thanos will become a commander without troops. If nothing unexpected happens, Thanos will basically have no chance of survival under the beating. However, with Qin Luo's premise, it is unlikely that Guyi and his men will completely kill Thanos. In the universe, the Land of Eternity. This is the Land of Eternity, just as the name of this place suggests. In the Land of Eternity, almost everything is eternal and has not changed for 10,000 years, not to mention the existence of death. After all, even the goddess of death is unwilling to come to the land of death to collect the souls of those who died. After Qin Luo came to this land, he was also shocked by the surrounding scenes. Trees that can't see the end can be seen everywhere, and there are many strange creatures. The size is surprisingly huge, and it is unknown how many years old monsters have lived. But then again, Qin Luo did not see any vibrant scenes on these creatures. Instead, he saw a kind of numbness, even a gray and dead silence. These creatures were wandering around aimlessly, like zombies. Seeing this, Qin Luo couldn't help but have an idea in his mind. Is eternal immortality really a happy thing? It seems not to be the case. Think about the Emperor Shiden in Fenyun. What kind of virtue did that guy become later? And he only lived for 1,000 years. And there is Master Guyi. Aren't they all living examples? What about me? With my own strength, it is not difficult to survive forever. The power of fluctuations can keep his soul immortal, and the power of blood can keep his vitality at its peak at all times. The goddess of death is his servant. In this world, if he doesn't want to die, who can make him die? In the endless years, will I collapse? The more Qin Luo thought about it, the more confused he became, as if countless pictures of himself going crazy appeared in his mind. Suddenly Qin Luo's mind was shocked. All those fantasies disappeared. The wave imprint in the sea of consciousness slowly surrounded, and the heart eye in the center also lit up with a blue light. Affected by the power of fluctuation, Qin Luo immediately calmed down. He silently recited the Shushan scripture in his heart to help himself calm down. After his mind was completely calmed down, Qin Luo couldn't help but feel a little scared. This place is really a bit weird. He just had some random thoughts, and there was a flaw in his mind, so he was taken advantage of by some special thoughts of this eternal land. He almost hooked his inner demon. With the inner demon, there is no redemption. Qin Luo couldn't imagine that he was so crazy now. How crazy his inner demon would be. Qin Luo felt the weird breath that was lingering around him. Just now, it was these things that almost made him lose his mind. I just don't know how this thing was formed, and it was so weird. I really don't know why this eternal land formed such an aura. It's just too scary. Even he almost got scared. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The next second, the power of fluctuation broke out. There seemed to be a flash of lightning around, and then a gust of wind suddenly rose, sweeping in all directions. The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became solemn, and then nothing happened, at least on the surface. In fact, the weird atmosphere of most of the eternal land was swept away by Qin Luo's power. Facing these strange things, the wave force that transformed into the breath of thunder god is simply too suitable. Papa, however, at this moment, the sound of clapping suddenly rang out. Qin Luo raised his head and saw eternity, which was emitting golden light, appeared in the air. At this time, eternity was extremely huge and exuded terrifying power. In that way, it looked like a giant looking down on ants. However, Qin Luo was disdainful of this and said, "Eternity, stop scaring people with fantasy here. Come out and fight me. Stop stabbing in the back. Human, you are really strange. If you hadn't become an obstacle to me, I really wanted to take you into the eternal land, but now, your end is only death." Before eternity finished his pretentious words, Qin Luo raised the ancient short sword in his hand and slashed through the air with a sudden blow. The terrifying sword light swept across the sky in an instant. The illusion of eternity could not withstand the blow of the sword slashing through the air. There was no suspense at all, and it disappeared on the spot. "If you want to fight, then fight." "What are you talking about, pretender?" Qin Luo cursed, and the aura around him began to surge. The off skills that had not been used for a long time began to be added to his body one by one. He really hadn't been at full power for a while. The terrifying power burst out, causing the land of eternity to begin to shake. There was no way that the off itself was powerful enough, and now it was blessed by the passive power of the second awakening. The power was definitely not a little bit. In the Temple of Eternity, Eternity sat on a high chair and heard Qin Luo's last curse. The expression on his face was really as exciting as it could be. The murderous intent in his eyes was almost condensed into substance. Then his eyes swept towards the man and woman beside him, looking down at him like a god. The man and woman couldn't help but half kneel on the ground, with a bit of panic. "Kill that human, and I can give you unexpected benefits, and I can also fulfill any of your wishes. This is a promise from God. If you can't do it, you know the consequences." "Yes, Lord Eternal." 2 inches. A man and a woman spoke in unison, raised their heads, and revealed two faces that Qin Luo was very familiar with. If Qin Luo was present, he would definitely be shocked. Chapter 499 Visitors from the Multiverse Dark Dimension, and your two children. I can help you get them. Eternal seemed to think it was not enough, so he directly added a dose of strong medicine. Chapter 7 The other side's masters were all suppressed. It was difficult to protect themselves, let alone help in the battle. Time passed by minute by minute. The battle below was still in a very fierce state. Although the strength of the Chitauri army was slightly weaker, they seemed to have no emotions. Even with heavy casualties, they still had no intention of retreating. However, the final outcome was almost doomed. After all, not all strength gaps can be filled by relying on some kind of spirit. At this time, Johnny and Old Carter's battle was coming to an end. Old Carter was the first to decide the winner. Black Dwarf finally reached his limit, and his body was burned to ashes in midair. Finally, it turned into ashes and dissipated in midair. Once Black Dwarf died, Supergiant was no match for Old Carter. He killed her with a direct shot of the Hellsoul Devourer. After Old Carter solved the 2 Obsidian 5 generals, Johnny also completed the kill. Johnny cut off the blade of General Corvus Glaive. Dark Proxima was even more miserable. She was not killed by the flowing star blade. She was smashed to death by the flaming meteor that fell from the sky. For some reason, Dark Proxima was particularly attracted to meteors. Johnny swung his sword 8 times, but 9 meteors flew down and smashed her into a pulp. Johnny himself wondered where the 9th meteor came from. It was simply too unscientific. 4 of the 5 Dark Lords had died. Only the most powerful Ebony Maw was left, still being beaten by the mages of Kamar-Taj. The 5 Dark Lords, who resounded throughout the universe, were destined to be annihilated on this earth today. Chapter 497, The Battle of Mages. Ebony Maw's death. A bunch of third-rate mages. Do you think your tricks can trap me? In another mirror space, Ebony Maw, who was tied up like a dumpling by a dozen mages, roared. In an instant, more than a dozen mages lost control of their magic and flew backward 7 or 8 meters before they could barely stabilize their bodies. Seeing this, Benedict Cumberbatch immediately manipulated the mirror image in the space, causing Ebony Maw's position to be quickly pulled away by a large distance. To prevent him from taking advantage of this opportunity to attack, it must be said that the magic of mirror space is really powerful. As long as the opponent's strength does not exceed the limit of space, then the mirror space can perfectly show what is called the advantage of geographical location. Ebony Maw is now very impatient, and his face is almost distorted. He knows that the other 5 generals of the Black Order can't hold on for much longer, and he is still being entangled by these third-rate wizards and can't get away. If the 5 generals of the Black Order really have any accidents, then he will not have an easy time. It is very likely that Thanos will kill him directly in anger. Thinking of this, Ebony Maw decided not to drag it on. I saw his dry palms closed, and the surroundings seemed to become distorted. Countless filaments emitting colorful light appeared out of thin air. These filaments were suspended around Ebony Maw, like ribbons that kept circling. Be careful, this is his materialized spiritual energy. Don't get in touch with it, or he will control you. Wang's face changed immediately upon seeing this, and he warned the surrounding mages solemnly. The faces of many mages changed upon hearing this. They didn't expect that the other party could actually materialize spiritual power. You know, even if the spiritual power of a mage is far superior to that of an ordinary person, it is extremely difficult to do this. In the entire Kamar-Taj, no one except Ancient One can do this. Even Benedict Cumberbatch, who has recently risen strongly, can't do it. Although Ebony Maw's move stunned everyone, Benedict Cumberbatch found that Ebony Maw was not at ease at this time. A little sweat flowed from his dry face, and his eyes were full of fatigue. Obviously, it was not so easy for him to exert such power. If he seized the opportunity, he might let the other party fall without attacking. Benedict Cumberbatch looked at Ebony Maw. His mind turned rapidly, and he quickly thought about the strategy. He is now worse than in the original plot. After all, without the cheating device of the Time Stone, his strength would be just so-so. He could be considered the best among the many mages in Kamar-Taj, but he was still a long way behind Ebony Maw. He knew that he had no chance of defeating Ebony Maw by head-on confrontation. That's why he gathered all the top mages in Kamar-Taj to beat Ebony Maw. As a result, the opponent's strength was beyond his imagination. Their righteous fight not only failed to defeat the opponent, on the contrary, many people were injured. If it weren't in the mirror space, perhaps someone would have died now. Third-rate mage, go to hell. Ebony Maw roared, and the colorful light bands around him spread out, turning into countless 7-color filaments, shooting towards everyone. Each of these filaments was as beautiful as glass, but extremely deadly. As long as these people dared to be stained with a little bit, they would die. Portal, Wang shouted at this time, and took the lead in drawing a circle with his hand, and a huge spark portal appeared in front of him. The other mages all jumped, and soon dozens of portals of different sizes blocked the way. The king was a little nervous at this time, wondering if his portal could withstand the opponent's attack. However, when Ebony Maw saw the opponent open the signature portal, a mocking sneer appeared on his face. He grabbed and pulled the flying colored silk thread with both hands, and it changed direction and rushed into the sky. It was like countless fireworks exploding at this moment. Seeing the opponent's attack change direction, the king's teeth were almost broken. I didn't expect that the opponent's power had been controlled to such an extent. It was really terrifying. Kamartaj's mages wanted to change the direction of the portal, but unfortunately their movements were too slow compared to the speed of the colored silk falling. Watching their own team was about to be wiped out. At this time, Benedict Cumberbatch's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and he forcibly changed his position. He and Ebony Maw had a wave of shape-shifting. Ebony Maw only felt the world change. Then he appeared at the place where his trick was about to land. Seeing this scene, Ebony Maw was frightened, but he did not panic. He could fully withstand it now. He just needed to change the direction of attack again. He did not believe that the opponent could continue to change direction. After all, if he wanted to cast such magic, the consumption would be huge. Ebony Maw was right. At this time, Benedict Cumberbatch no longer had the power to cast this magic again. He watched the colorful silk falling from the sky stop and then turn around again. He immediately shouted, "Ebony Maw, what are you still fighting for? Look behind you. All your comrades have died. You have already lost." Ebony Maw was shocked when he heard this, and he also felt the space fluctuations behind him. Ebony Maw was eager to save people after all, and he could not hold back his pride and turned around. As a result, he saw the death scenes of Black Dwarf, Supergiant, Corvus Glaive, and Dark Proxima. In an instant, his mind was shocked again, and his eyes almost popped out. The colored silk in the sky was formed by the condensation of his spiritual power. Now, under his influence, the colored silk became unstable. "King!" Now, Benedict Cumberbatch shouted. King and a group of mages made hand gestures together, and countless spark portals enveloped Ebony Maw. In an instant, Ebony Maw was enveloped by the spark portals. Sensing the coming of danger, Ebony Maw wanted to get rid of the predicament, but it was too late. The surrounding spark portals shrank instantly. Ebony Maw was immediately dismembered on the spot. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. Crack, crack. 2 consecutive sounds of glass breaking rang out. Under the purple beam of light, the magic circle was like glass, shattering inch by inch. Affected by the shattering of the magic circle, Guyi's face turned slightly pale, but he soon calmed down. Now with the blessing of multiple powers, the shattering of several magic circles really had little impact on her. Purple light burst out again around Thanos. Then a ray of golden light surrounded him. The next moment, countless souls emerged from the golden halo. Those souls gradually condensed, and soon formed a large army of undead around Thanos. The power of these undead was uneven. Some were even inferior to ordinary humans, while others could bring the Ancient One Thanos a sense of danger at the level of a father. Guyi looked at the army of undead with a serious look. Although the highest among these undead was only half a step to the level of a father, none of them reached the level of a real father. But it still brought a lot of pressure to Guyi. The army of undead condensed by the soul gem is completely immortal. It is not easy for the Ancient One to deal with them. Not to mention that there is a covetous Thanos. If possible, the Ancient One really wants to use the time gem to reverse time. Unfortunately, the time gem has a very limited effect on the power of other gems and cannot reverse time at all. At the same time, the Ancient One couldn't help but secretly feel lucky that Thanos didn't release these undead at the beginning. Otherwise, everyone in the apartment would be in danger. These undead are not comparable to those Chirrut people. Kill. Thanos raised the Infinity Gauntlet and roared. Countless undead armies rushed towards the Ancient One, and there was nothing else in his expression except murderous intent. The Ancient One took a deep breath, and the colorful light at the center of his eyebrows was very bright. The next moment, the Ancient One formed a seal with both hands, and thousands of clones appeared to meet the undead army. Chapter 496 Battle Changes. The defeat of the 5 black generals. Thousands of clones collided with thousands of undead. The entire mirror space became lively. However, there was no scream. There was only a silent dissipation. Whether it was the undead or the clone, once it was destroyed, it would dissipate invisibly. The scene was indescribably weird. The original body of the Ancient One was extremely solemn at this time. With multiple minds, she once again faced Thanos. Fortunately, with the support of cosmic energy and infinite gems, she can still hold on now, but the outcome of this time is really unknown. The weirdness of the soul gem was really beyond her imagination, even beyond the power of the gem itself. The Ancient One had a vague feeling that the soul gem seemed to contain other powerful powers, otherwise, it would never be possible to achieve this point. On the battlefield in New York, Earth, the Chitauri army and some miscellaneous alien soldiers continued to fight with the demons of hell and the warriors of the Asgardian Protoss. Compared with the brutality, although these aliens are also warriors who have been fighting for many years, but compared with the demons who enjoy fighting every day in hell, the cruelty is not at the same level. Since hell was suppressed by Qin Luo and Johnny and others took power, these demons are almost going crazy. Now they finally have the opportunity to fight wantonly. How could they let it go? One by one, it can't be said that they are full of chicken blood. They are simply full of chicken blood. Therefore, almost none of the people in the Thanos Legion who come into contact with these demons are intact. They are either swallowed by demons or torn into pieces. In contrast, the Asgard Protoss warriors are much more civilized. Slowly advancing, one by one, the enemies who died at their hands are much more complete and neatly piled up into small corpses. The war is almost one-sided. The Thanos army, facing the triple combination of the human world, Hell, and Asgard, has almost no ability to resist. The damage caused to the 3 parties is minimal. The people in the hero apartment are also killing madly at this time. Jane Fords, who has mastered the Thunderblade Thousand Blades, is almost the most active existence in the whole scene. The Thunderblade in his hand was almost swinging out a residual image. Thousands of broken blades, scattered, each will form an independent lightning. Those lightnings intertwine to form a lightning net. All the Chitauri in the lightning net were not spared, and all were strangled. At this time, Thor saw Jane Fortes' great power, and he felt indescribable in his heart. It's really hard to describe, even though his strength at this time is stronger than Jane Fortes. After all, he has completely activated the power of Thor and truly mastered his own power. But now he can only be a sledgehammer, carrying thunder and lightning, bombarding the enemies around him. Compared with the Hans Thunderblade Thousand Blades, his Thor's hammer was directly pulled away by several streets. Being strong is only temporary. Being handsome is a lifelong thing. Venom played a completely different role at this time. In the past, Venom was completely a killing weapon. Under various forms, killing can be said to be the most proficient. Assisting Spider-Man is really a waste of talent. But now it is different. After obtaining the power of Kaja, the afterimage, his power form has changed completely. Now almost everyone in the apartment has a black shadow attached to them. This is the transformation of Venom. This black shadow can not only enhance the strength and speed of everyone, but also play an absolute defensive role. Perhaps for Thor's family and Maypark and Ganada in Asgard, the role of Venom's black shadow is not particularly great. It just has the ability to assist. But compared to the Captain and others, the bonus of Venom can be said to be quite terrifying. The strength has skyrocketed several times, and the safety has been greatly improved, especially Hawkeye. His improvement is the most obvious. The longbow in his hand is almost playing out of flowers, and energy arrows are constantly falling from the sky like rain. There is no need to say more about Tony and his wife. The couple is united, plus the help of Red Queen and Jarvis. Wow, the two of them are a mechanical army. All the armor combat drones are put into the battlefield, greatly improved the enemy killing ability of the human side. Maypark and Ganada did not act too rashly. Qin Luo is not here, and the masters of the Godfather level like Guyi cannot escape for the time being. So now only they are here to guard their side. Always pay attention to everyone to avoid any accidents. Maypark has the help of the wind spirit, and the speed and strength he bursts out are not inferior to Ganada at all, except for the endurance, which is slightly weaker. The strength of the two women is now almost equal. 2 half-step Godfather level, sitting in their own side, is completely enough. Chapter 9. The power in Captain Marvel's body actually increased a little at this moment, and she began to approach the top father-level strongman. But her strength is still far behind Qin Luo, and Qin Luo is not a parent who spoils his children. He kicked Captain Marvel directly in the face, and the wave force carried a terrifying force, kicking Captain Marvel directly and sending her flying backwards. The next second, Qin Luo disappeared on the spot. Now that the episode here is solved, it's time to prepare to deal with that bastard Eternal. As for Captain Marvel, Qin Luo was too lazy to pay attention to her. After being kicked by Qin Luo, Captain Marvel flew backwards 100 meters before barely stabilizing her body. Just when she recovered, she found that Qin Luo had disappeared. Damn bastard, I'm not done with you. Captain Marvel roared and chased in the direction where Qin Luo disappeared. After the contact just now, Captain Marvel has captured a trace of Qin Luo's breath. With this trace of breath, Captain Marvel can completely sense Qin Luo's location through her own power. But whether she can catch up with Qin Luo who teleported, that is a question. Earth. In the mirror space, Thanos' body was covered with scars from the bombardment of mystical magic. There was a deep wound on his arm that could be seen to the bone. It was caused by the cutting of the space power. On the other hand, Guyi, except for a few torn clothes, did not suffer any injuries. His bald head was still so bright. The difference between the two was obvious. In fact, think about it, Thanos and Guyi were both top-level players. Without the Infinity Stones, the difference in strength between the two was very small. If you insist on saying who is stronger, Guyi would probably be slightly better. Now with the blessing of the Infinity Stones, the situation is naturally different. Guyi has been operating the Time Stone for many years, and has reached the extreme of the power of the Space Stone. She can fully exert the power of the two stones. On the other hand, Thanos has just mastered the Soul and Power Stones. It is good to be able to exert 70% of the power of the stones. This is also because his Titan bloodline is quite compatible with the Power Stone. Not to mention that Ancient One also has the blessing of the Cosmic Energy Mark. With multiple advantages, the gap between Ancient One and Thanos widened. If the two were to face off now, Ancient One's winning rate would definitely be 60% or even 65%. Chapter 495. The outcome of the Soul Gem and the Undead Army is obvious. Thanos was shocked. He thought that the Supreme Sorcerer was strong, but he never thought that the other party would be so strong, he could actually suppress him. Now he really couldn't see any chance of winning. Coupled with the situation of his subordinates, Thanos knew in his heart that his trip to Earth this time might be a loss. But Thanos is still stable now. He can afford to pay all the living forces outside, as long as he doesn't die. Thanos firmly believes that he must be the final winner. Ancient One made seals with both hands, and the space around him began to tremble violently. In an instant, countless chains burning with flames shot out. These chains are the masterpieces of Old Carter and Johnny, plus the blessing of the Eternal Fire. As long as he is tied up, even a father-level strongman can't easily escape. Ancient One plans to use the Hell Chain to restrain Thanos, and then use the secret magic to seal Thanos in one fell swoop. In this way, even if Thanos will not be completely sealed, it is not so easy to get rid of the shackles. By then, I know that when Qin Luo returns, everything will be over. Damn it, Thanos cursed in a low voice, and a purple flame ignited on his body. The terrifying power shook the surrounding space. With his eyesight, he can naturally see the extraordinariness of these chains. The Titan power plus the terrifying power of the Power Gem made those snake-like chains stagnate and could not move at all. Seeing this, Ancient One's eyes flashed, the space around Thanos shattered, and a strange suction came out from the space crack. Thanos, who was concentrating on fighting the Hell Chain, was not careful, and his body shook, and the power he burst out was slightly relaxed. Ancient One seized this opportunity and stepped forward. At the same time, the magic circles on his hands shone with dazzling light. Thanos felt a chill in his heart when he saw this, and a sense of danger surged into his heart. Without thinking, Thanos directly sacrificed the Soul Stone. The strange fluctuations spread. The surrounding scene began to change. A scene like a paradise appeared around Thanos. The surrounding space seemed to be isolated. Those Hell Chains, including Ancient One, could not invade the area around the power of the Soul Stone. Even Ancient One didn't know much about the role of the Soul Stone. Speaking of it, among the 6 Infinity Stones, the Soul Stone can be said to be the least in the world. It is not like the Space Stone, which has been wandering around the world. Thanos couldn't help but be dazed in the scene of the paradise. A green figure appeared in front of him. The figure was 3 meters away from him and didn't move forward anymore. There was an indescribable emotion in her expression. Ancient One immediately understood what was going on when he saw this. Legend has it that if you want to truly obtain the Soul Stone, you must sacrifice your beloved. Now it seems that the green figure is Thanos' beloved. Thanos stared at the figure blankly, tears slowly flowing down his eyes. Gamora, I'm sorry, I sacrificed you and your friends. But I won't regret it. When Thanos said this, the sadness and guilt in his eyes turned into indifference. With a wave of the purple palm, the green figure dissipated like a star, wiping away the tears from the corners of his eyes. Thanos locked his eyes on the Ancient One again. Perhaps because of crying, Thanos' eyes were bloodshot at this time, and his eyes looked particularly scary. What a cold person, Thanos. Do you really think everything you have done is worth it? The Ancient One looked at Thanos calmly, not affected by Thanos' eyes at all. This world needs balance, Thanos roared, with dazzling light flashing on the Infinity Gauntlet. He pointed at the Ancient One and shouted, Ancient One, I'll give you one last chance. If you are my enemy, your final outcome will be ruined. If you are on different paths, you can't make plans together. As the Ancient One finished speaking, a colorful light shone from his brow. The magic circles on his hands instantly became huge because of the reflection of the colorful light. The 2 magic circles pressed towards Thanos like mountains. Boom! With a loud bang, the space around Thanos shattered inch by inch, including the space displayed by the Soul Gem, which also began to tremble violently, with cracks floating on the surface. I have to say, you are the most powerful enemy I have ever encountered. The Supreme Sorcerer. Thanos finished speaking, and the purple aura around him condensed on the Infinity Gauntlet. Then he punched the sky. A terrifying purple beam of light burst out from his fist. Chapter 10. Captain Marvel, who had stepped into the level of a father, quickly locked onto Nick Fury's location with his powerful mental power. He was about to kill him. The Skrulls naturally couldn't let Captain Marvel be so presumptuous, and they all took action to fight him. Nick Fury also took advantage of this opportunity to launch his long-prepared killer, ready to completely wipe out Captain Marvel to eliminate future troubles. The result can be imagined. Captain Marvel is no longer the same as before, and under the strong suppression, Nick Fury's preparations are simply a joke. The Skrulls also saw the horror of Captain Marvel. They wanted to surrender and hand over Nick Fury, but the murderous Captain Marvel didn't care about their pleas for mercy. It didn't take long for the entire Skrull planet to be destroyed by her. And Nick Fury, the old thief, saw that things were not going well, and chose to run away as soon as possible, and stole the Skrull's most advanced flight equipment. He rushed out of the Skrull's planet and began his escape journey in the universe. When Qin Luo saw them, Nick Fury had been fleeing in the universe for 2 days and 2 nights. Damn it, Nick Fury roared, exhausted, and kept hitting the joystick in his hand. His eyes were full of bloodshot. This feeling of life hanging by a thread almost tortured him to collapse. If he hadn't been determined, he would have turned the spaceship and rushed towards Captain Marvel, like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, Nick Fury's eyes were dazed and he saw a familiar figure. Nick Fury was shocked at the time. He rubbed his eyes hard, and after making sure that he was not an illusion, He was instantly filled with fear. He never thought that he would see this man in the universe. Captain Marvel was also surprised. Captain Marvel, whose eyes were also scarlet because of the murderous intent, saw Qin Luo suddenly appear, and the murderous intent in her eyes was instantly restrained, and there was an indescribable complex feeling in her heart. With her proud personality, she really didn't know how to face the man who gave him a new life. "Yo, busy." Qin Luo waved to the two of them and said hello. "Are you here to kill me?" Nick Fury's voice came from the aircraft through the loudspeaker. "It's just a coincidence. I just happened to pass by and felt a familiar breath, so I came to take a look." Qin Luo told the truth directly, and there was nothing to hide. However, Nick Fury didn't think so. All these things combined completely broke his last string of reason. "Damn Qin Luo. Damn Qin Luo. You damn guy. What a coincidence. What a shit. I'll kill you. Kill you." Nick Fury roared, driving the aircraft, like a mad dog, rushing towards Qin Luo, with a posture of dying together. Chapter 494 The Death of Nick Fury. Captain Marvel looked at Nick Fury. The energy wave in his hand was just raised and then put down, looking at Nick Fury with a sneer on his face. Unexpectedly, Nick Fury, who was so afraid of death, would actually seek his own death. Fight with Qin Luo? Is he so brave now? The spaceship driven by Nick Fury is very fast, and speed is power. With a terrifying impact force, it hit Qin Luo's body fiercely. Bang! With a loud bang, nothing happened. The spaceship was smashed into pieces without any surprise, and Qin Luo was still standing there, without even moving his clothes. At this time, Nick Fury fell out of the spaceship and fell into the depths of the universe. Qin Luo saw this and stretched out his hand. Nick Fury's body seemed to be pulled by something and fell directly into Qin Luo's hands. At this time, Nick Fury was covered in blood and suffered severe injuries in many places. The whole person was like a blood gourd. He was wearing a special protective suit all over his body. With this protective suit, he could survive in this universe. Otherwise, at the moment when the spaceship was broken, this guy would have died directly. But now he might as well have died directly. Kill me. Nick Fury looked at Qin Luo, who was calm in front of him, and reluctantly spit out these words. Now he has completely lost hope of life. In fact, just when Nick Fury's spaceship started, he had already woken up from the collapse, but he did not choose to break in time or anything. What he did was just to ask for death. Nick Fury himself knew very well that in his current situation, there was no way out. It would be better to crash himself to death than to die in the hands of Captain Marvel and Qin Luo. Unfortunately, he did not expect that the protective suit on his body would save his life, so that he was only seriously injured but not dead. "Okay, fulfill your wish." Qin Luo heard Nick Fury's request and nodded decisively. He clenched his palm in the air and was about to crush Nick Fury's head. In fact, without Nick Fury saying it, Qin Luo did not intend to let him go. With so many things, Qin Luo had wanted to kill him a long time ago. It's just that he never got around to it. Now that he has met him, he naturally wants to get rid of him directly. Bang! Qin Luo's wave power was interrupted by a golden light as soon as it erupted. Who else could it be if it wasn't Captain Marvel? But Captain Marvel's attack did not completely block Qin Luo's wave power. The residual power of the two forces hit Nick Fury, almost blowing off his skull. Large pieces of scalp were blown off, and blood was scattered in the universe and condensed into blood-colored ice crystals. It looks pretty beautiful. Qin Luo frowned and looked at Captain Marvel with his 5 fingers together and asked, "Do you want to save him?" "No, I should be the one who killed him. Leave him to me." Captain Marvel stared at Nick Fury and Qin Luo's hand, and there was no concealment of murderous intent in his eyes. "Boring woman." Qin Luo rolled his eyes when he heard it, and then the power in his hand burst out again. Seeing this, Captain Marvel used the same trick again to stop Qin Luo from executing Nick Fury. It's a pity that this guy doesn't regard Qin Luo as a saint. See, how could the same trick work on him? Qin Luo made a sword with his hand and pointed it at the void, and countless sword energy gushed out, which could not help but crush Captain Marvel's attack. He even chopped off Nick Fury's head. Black salted egg and his headless body fell into the universe and soon disappeared. Before disappearing, Qin Luo clearly saw a look of relief on Nick Fury's face. Marvel's #1 old villain ended completely like this and disappeared from this world. But his soul will eventually return to hell, according to his deeds in his lifetime, let alone the 18th level of hell. The next 16 or 17 levels are almost the same. Although he has made contributions to mankind, it is estimated that his sins are more than his contributions. The specific situation still depends on Johnny's power of judgment. That thing is very fair, Qin Luo. Captain Marvel's eyes turned red in an instant, and she stared at Qin Luo as if Qin Luo had just killed her own father. The next moment, Captain Marvel rushed over like a cannonball. He exuded a strong aura. Chapter 11. Thanos shouted directly to Ebony Maw, who was sitting in the sky. "Ebony Maw, don't let Ronan and the others die." Before he finished speaking, Thanos' figure disappeared in this space. Ancient One also disappeared in this world. Ebony Maw was stunned at first, then came back to his senses. His face became extremely ugly. He could no longer feel Thanos' breath, but he knew very well that Thanos' disappearance was not death, but was involved in a special space. Thinking of Thanos' instructions before his disappearance, Ebony Maw did not dare to delay any longer. He immediately activated his magic energy and prepared to rush to the aid of the remaining 5 generals of the Black Obsidian. If he delayed for a while, I'm afraid the 5 generals of the Black Obsidian would no longer exist. However, he had just moved. A dozen spark portals appeared in front of him. Then, led by Benedict Cumberbatch, more than a dozen mages of Camartage appeared in front of him. The destined opponents met, and the magic circles on the wrists of the mages of Camartage shone, and their expressions were full of murderous intent. A bunch of third-rate magicians who play tricks. You think you can stop me? Do you want to die? Looking at Benedict Cumberbatch, Ebony Maw's face was very ugly. He didn't have time to tangle with these magicians now. Feeling the opponent's momentum, Benedict Cumberbatch and his group looked extremely solemn, but no one retreated. Instead, they began to form seals, and the power of secret magic surged from several people. For a moment, Ebony Maw actually felt a little pressure. Normally speaking, Benedict Cumberbatch would never be Ebony Maw's opponent now. Even in the original timeline, he was not Ebony Maw's opponent, but now he is not fighting alone. Behind him are Wang and other elite magicians. These magicians who have studied magic for many years, even if their talents are not as good as Benedict Cumberbatch, but the energy they burst out over time is definitely not to be underestimated. In addition, they are all from the same lineage, and it is definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2 when casting magic. Ebony Maw waved his hand, and countless metal spikes flew out, shooting directly at many magicians. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of breaking through the air sounded, and Wang took the lead and stood up. With a single hand, a spark portal appeared, taking in all the spikes. He summoned the spark portal again, and in an instant, another classic wave of return of favor came. However, Ebony Maw only tapped his finger, and the spikes scattered. They turned into countless fine needles and shot out again. Seeing this, the other mages cooperated in casting spells, dissolving Ebony Maw's offensive while launching a mystical magic attack. Magic whips, magic fans, etc. came in an endless stream. The battle between mages broke out completely. Compared to the battle on Earth, Qin Luo was traveling through the universe at this time. He didn't know the real purpose of eternity and what the backup was, but what he knew was that as long as eternity was resolved, everything would be over. So Qin Luo simply cut the Gordian knot. He teleported directly to the location of eternity. Maybe eternity was very secretive at this time, but he didn't know that Qin Luo had the passive skill of Mind's Eye. Especially after mastering the breath of the God of Thunder, the ability of the mind has been greatly improved. Not only is he extremely sensitive to the perception of malice, but he can also sense the source of malice. So Qin Luo directly locked onto the location of eternity. But his mental power is still a little insufficient, and he can't use teleportation to directly reach the location of eternity. So he had to use teleportation to shuttle back and forth in the universe. According to the current speed, it is estimated that it will take less than a minute to find him. You bastard, I'll see how you die this time. Qin Luo cursed in a low voice, just when he wanted to activate teleportation again. Suddenly, he felt a familiar breath and a faint malice. Chapter 493, The Battle Royale of the Universe in the Vast Universe. Being able to sense a familiar breath, and it's not just a breath, that's really interesting. Qin Luo hesitated for a moment and didn't continue to rush to the location of eternity. With a flash of his figure, he came to the place where the two familiar breaths were. At first glance, Qin Luo couldn't help but be a little confused. Good guy. It turned out to be the enemy of Nick Fury and Captain Marvel. In fact, he should have thought of it long ago. In the universe, the people he was familiar with were really limited. It was estimated that only these two appeared at the same time. Nick Fury was in a very embarrassed state at this time. He was driving a strange aircraft and running wildly in the universe. Behind him was Captain Marvel, who was covered in blood, and the energy wave bombarded Nick Fury like it was free. It must be said that Nick Fury's aircraft was very powerful. The speed was even faster than Captain Marvel, and the movements were very agile. Captain Marvel's attacks basically missed, and none of them could hit him. Of course, if he hit, Nick Fury would probably have died now. At this time, Nick Fury in the aircraft really wanted to cry. Originally thought that he could be safe for a while under the protection of the Skrulls until things on Earth calmed down. He returned as a king, took control of SHIELD again, and suppressed Qin Luo with the help of alien power. But who would have thought that Captain Marvel would happen? Captain Marvel not only did not die, but was saved by Qin Luo and let him go back to the mountains. Nick Fury almost killed Qin Luo millions of times in his heart. He was simply going to trap him to death. But now that things have come to this, what can he do? He can only accept his fate, and he started to prepare to deal with the problem of Captain Marvel. Originally, he still had a glimmer of luck. After all, it is not so easy to find a person in the vast universe. Nick Fury hid his breath and used the Skrull's power of change to turn himself into an ordinary Skrull. Just these are certainly not enough for the cautious Nick Fury. He still used the power of the Skrulls to create all kinds of traps and preparations for traps. Nick Fury is confident that with his multiple preparations, even if Captain Marvel shows up, the final result will be a bitter defeat. The Skrulls' help to Nick Fury is certainly not without cost. Simply put, Nick Fury has now given almost half of the resources of the Earth to the Skrulls. Anyway, in the eyes of the Skrulls themselves, they are already the masters of the Earth. It's just that these guys are destined not to think about what kind of disaster this transaction will bring them. Captain Marvel left the Earth. She was really angry, and the murderous intent in her heart was about to burst out of the sky. She didn't care about anything and rushed directly into the universe, chasing the breath coming from Nick Fury. Captain Marvel still had a certain understanding of the relationship between the Skrulls and Nick Fury, so she rushed to the Skrulls' planet without any hesitation, in the process of shuttling through the universe. At the beginning, Captain Marvel was in danger because of her own power. Many times, she almost died and reported to Johnny, but Captain Marvel finally survived, and under the many crises in the universe, it further stimulated her new life. When she came to the Skrulls' planet, she didn't say that her merits were perfect, but she had completely surpassed her former peak and entered the father level. The combat power soared by more than 10 times. Facing the strong attack of Captain Marvel, the Skrulls were all very calm and insisted that Nick Fury was not there. Chapter 12. Except for the ugly chin, the rest of the aspects are the best choice for Hulk. Before leaving, Qin Luo reminded Ancient One and Johnny that they should not destroy Thanos' body unless it is absolutely necessary. If possible, it is best to wait for him to come back before killing Thanos. Black Dwarf endured the scorching of the Hades flame. His soul was compatible with his body, so the soul burning of the Hades flame was not very effective for him. However, the characteristic of the Hades flame as a maggot attached to the bone was still retained. If nothing unexpected happens, even with Black Dwarf's terrifying recovery ability, it won't take long before he will be burned to slag. Haha, you are looking for death. The flames in old Carter's eyes jumped, and the terrifying Hades flame spread as if it was free of money. Then those Hades flames turned into fire meteors and spread in all directions. The whole space seemed to be ignited at this time. The Hades flame on Black Dwarf's body kept making a hissing sound, and from time to time there was flying ash rising. Those were all made of his flesh and blood. Ah! Black Dwarf kept wailing in pain. but the pain did not make him retreat, but aroused his ferocity even more. Even though the flesh and blood of his hands had already stuck to the giant hammer in his hands, he still charged at Old Carter frantically, and Old Carter was not polite, and he fired the dark flame cannon without any cost. Compared with the ferocity of Old Carter, Johnny's battle was much milder. The ones fighting him were Ronan and his wife, one of the 5 black generals. Ronan could be said to be the strongest among the 5 black generals, with a pseudo-immortal body. The battle blade in his hand was his root, and his soul was injected into it. As long as the battle blade was not destroyed, he could recover no matter how many times he died. With this characteristic, Ronan was enough to rank in the top 3 below the father level. Dark Knight Proxima was Ronan's wife, and her strength was relatively average. However, the spear in his hand had a very strong penetrating power, and ordinary objects could not stop it at all. Even with a vibranium shield, facing the spear in her hand, I'm afraid it would only be a regret. In the original plot, she died at the hands of the captain, which was completely a plot kill. Otherwise, 3 or 5 captains would not be enough for others to use gun barrels. Normally speaking, relying on the special features of this couple, they may not be able to win against ordinary father-level gods, but they will not be too embarrassed, and they are more than enough to protect themselves. It's a pity that the person they met is a person with a truly immortal body, and it can hit the soul directly. It's not an exaggeration to say that Johnny is Ronan's natural nemesis. As soon as the 2 sides fought, Ronan knew that his situation was a little bad, because his battle blade, whenever it touched the streamer star blade in Johnny's hand, would burst out blue sparks. Then his soul would feel a tremor. It seemed that the battle blade in his hand would leave at any time. After fighting for a few moves, Ronan decisively gave up using the battle blade to deal with Johnny. After exchanging a wave of weapons with Dark Knight Proxima, he continued to attack Johnny. Johnny also saw the other party's secret at this time, so he didn't care about Ronan's attack at all. He chopped the streamer star knife in his hand directly at the blade in the hand of Dark Knight Proxima. As a result, the scene became interesting. Johnny raised the machete and continued to attack Dark Knight Proxima. Ronan followed Johnny closely and kept stabbing Johnny's kidney with the spear in his hand. He was so fierce, but he didn't hurt Johnny at all. The broken bones will heal quickly under the burning of the Holy Spirit flame. Ronan was really going crazy at this time. He could already feel that his soul was traumatized. I dare not say more, but after 3 or 5 knives, I am afraid that his soul will be severely damaged and fall into a deep sleep. If there are 2 more knives, he can basically start the feast. Dark Knight Proxima and Ronan are connected by heart, so naturally she knows what her husband is like. She really ran away at all costs. Even if she was stabbed, she didn't want the blade in her hand to be damaged. It's just that her strength is not enough to compete with Johnny in speed. In less than a minute, she already had several wounds deep enough to see the bone, and the wounds were still burning with the flames of the Holy Spirit, constantly devouring her body. Lord Thanos, the enemy's strength is beyond our imagination. In the sky, Ebony Maw looked at the miserable state of his companions below, and his expression couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He was even more anxious in his heart. Now the situation below can be said to be quite bleak. Those Chitauri and Leviathan monsters were suppressed by others as soon as they landed. Those demons and evil spirits in hell were simply crazy in the face of such living creatures. It was completely a life-threatening state. The warriors of Asgard were very steady and advanced bit by bit, like a steamroller, and wherever they went, all the enemies were driven away. HMPH, Thanos snorted coldly, with a cold light flashing in his eyes, and a murderous aura all over his body. Chapter 492 Destined Opponent, Locked in Eternity. Ebony Maw, you will lead the army for me. Thanos finished speaking. His figure rushed out like a cannonball, holding the double-peaked battle blade in one hand, and the Infinity Gauntlet on the other hand, flashing dazzling golden light, especially the 2 gems on it, which were even more brilliant. Seeing his boss take action, the panic in Ebony Maw's heart immediately calmed down. For Thanos, these 5 black generals have absolute trust and blind worship. In their view, no one in the world except the gods will be a threat to their boss. Especially after obtaining 2 infinite gems and infinite gloves, The strength of their boss has reached a new level. I am afraid that it is not so easy for the gods to deal with their boss. Thanos just rushed out of the fleet. As a result, a long orange-red whip fell from the sky and rushed straight to his neck. Feeling the faint threat, Thanos did not hesitate at all, and dodged the attack of the orange whip with a twist. Then he saw a bald man standing where he had just stood. Supreme Sorcerer, Ancient One. Thanos looked at Ancient One with a gloomy face, and a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. Among the father-level people, there are not many people who can be favored by him, and Odin and Ancient One are definitely among them. Are you going to be my enemy? Thanos looked at Ancient One and said in a gloomy tone. If possible, he did not want to be the enemy of this troublesome wizard. After all, the heart of playing magic is dirty. Hearing Thanos' words, Ancient One smiled slightly and said calmly, Thanos, when you decided to invade the Earth, you were already my enemy. Don't forget that I am the guardian of the Earth, and what you need is on me. As soon as the voice of Ancient One fell, dazzling light shone on her brows and chest at the same time. Two rays of light, one blue and one green, flickered on her body, looking quite beautiful. It seemed that she felt the two infinite gems on the Ancient One. On Thanos' infinite gloves, the two gems of soul and power also emitted dazzling light. The moment Thanos saw the two infinity stones, he knew that the battle between him and Ancient One was inevitable. Thanos wielded the twin blades, with terrifying might, and went straight for Ancient One's head. At the same time, a purple light shone. In this attack, Thanos mobilized the power of the Power Stone. Feeling the terrifying might, even Ancient One had to take it seriously. The Space Stone at the center of his eyebrow shone. The mirror space swept towards Thanos, as if sensing the changes in space. The twin blades in Thanos' hand slashed in the void, as if trying to split the constantly changing space. Unfortunately, although Thanos was strong, the combination of Ancient One's space magic and the Space Stone was too sharp. Thanos' full-strength sword only made the space vibrate, and did not break the space created by Ancient One at this time. He knew that he would definitely be involved in the space created by Ancient One. Chapter 13. At the same time, there were bursts of roars in the sky. The attack originally directed at New York appeared above Thanos' warship. It's no wonder that the location of the huge spark portal just now was above Thanos' fleet. It has to be said that Ancient One's operation of returning the favor is really cool. Thanos seemed to have sensed the crisis. He rushed out of the warship suddenly. He punched the sky. He used the same trick again, and the purple light wave soared into the sky, intercepting all the attacks that were about to fall. Otherwise, just this wave of return the favor would cause Thanos' army to suffer a terrible number of casualties. Taking advantage of this opportunity, countless New York residents were teleported out of New York City. This naturally included Coulson, Hill and other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. When these people appeared among ordinary people and looked at the colorful New York City from afar, their expressions were indescribably weird. There was an inexplicable feeling in their hearts. Are they so useless? Not even a chance to help? Coulson and Hill gritted their teeth and left some people to unite various departments and appease the people without much hesitation. Then they immediately organized manpower and mobilized equipment to rush back to New York City. In front of the apartment, Old Carter and Johnny looked at each other. Then they soared into the sky, one on the left and one on the right, like a meteor, rushed into the battleship. The Hell Soul devouring cannon and the Streamer Star meteorite knife worked together, and dozens of battleships were destroyed in the hands of these two people in an instant. Feeling the existence of the father level, the 5 black generals under Thanos did not use Thanos' orders, and rushed to the location of Old Carter and Johnny. Their strength is naturally unable to truly compete with the existence of the father level, but in a short period of time, they can also ensure that they will not die. In short, Johnny and Old Carter cannot be allowed to act recklessly like this, otherwise, they will become commanders without troops. With the previous situation, Thanos was afraid and simply gave up the battleship's ground-washing attack. Instead, he sent down the order to let the Chitauri and Leviathan, as well as some of the races that depended on him, launch an attack. Looking at the locust-like Chitauri and Leviathan in the sky, everyone in the apartment grabbed their weapons, knowing that the war was about to begin. Boom. However, at this moment, there was an explosion in the sky. Then a seven-color light fell from the sky, containing a terrifying might, like the Milky Way hanging upside down, heavily falling on the center of the fleet. This seven-color light came too fast. It was so fast that Thanos couldn't react. It had already fallen. Boom, boom, boom. ... Anything that was touched by the seven-color light, whether it was a warship or those Chitauri and Leviathan monsters, all were turned into ashes by the terrifying power and dissipated. This seven-color light was nothing else but Asgard's Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge is not just a long-distance transmission tool, it also has a powerful ability to locate attacks. In the original plot, Loki decisively activated the Rainbow Bridge to attack the planet where the frost giants lived in order to eradicate the root of the problem. If Thor had not interrupted Loki's plan in time, it is estimated that the frost giants and their planet would have been destroyed by the Rainbow Bridge. This shows how powerful the Rainbow Bridge is. However, in order to avoid accidental injuries, Thor and his team did not use the power of the Rainbow Bridge to its fullest. After destroying some enemies, the Rainbow Bridge landed steadily at the door of the apartment. Nearly 5,000 Asgard soldiers, led by Thor, Loki, Tony and the Hulk, appeared in everyone's sight. Although Thor did not reveal all of Asgard's secrets this time, it was not much different. After all, Asgard has just experienced a wave of Dark Elves' war. The current manpower is really not sufficient. These people are already the most people Asgard can fight. It's impossible to pull the wounded up from the bed and continue to fight, right? Looking at the fully armed Asgardian warriors around, everyone in the apartment suddenly felt the pressure reduced. Apart from other things, the iron-blooded breath emanating from these Asgardians alone was enough to make people feel at ease. "Are you okay, Potts?" After Tony landed, he immediately ran to Pepper's side. After learning that something happened on Earth, this guy was scared to death. Pepper saw the appearance of her man, and the corners of her mouth slightly raised, but no one saw it under the mask. "Don't worry, I'm fine, thanks to Qin's timely arrival." Hearing Pepper's words, Tony was completely relieved, and then half-jokingly said, "This time, I'm afraid we have to use the bottom of the box, and the loss will be not small." Pepper naturally understood what Tony meant. She said with a little helplessness, "In this situation, what loss is there to see? Besides, is it as big as the loss of your usual research on the battle suit?" Haha. Tony couldn't help but laugh dryly a few times when he heard this. Since he made the battle armor, he has spent money like water. It was like a tsunami. If it weren't for the suit that caused Stark Industries shares to soar, and the fact that it had a deep foundation, ordinary wealthy people, even Osborne Industries, might not be able to withstand Tony's play. In the sky, the 4 Black Obsidian generals had already fought with Johnny and Old Carter. With these 4 half-step Heavenly Father-level strongmen restraining them, Johnny and Old Carter were inevitably in some trouble. Of course, it was just some trouble. They wanted to deal with the father and son with their own strength. It was still a long way to go. Chapter 491 Tyranny. The 4 Black Obsidian generals faced the rushing Black Dwarf. Old Carter raised his hand and fired a cannon. The terrifying nether flame gushed out, instantly knocking the Black Dwarf away 100 meters. At this time, another Black Obsidian 5 superstar exerted his own power, mental control, and telekinesis. All kinds of messy things were thrown at Old Carter, but before they could get close to his body, they were directly turned into ashes by the nether flame burning all over Old Carter's body. As for mental control, that was really a joke. Even a wizard of Ancient One's level could not invade the spirit of Ghost Rider. What's more, Superstar is not even at the level of a father. And there are marks of ghosts and gods in Old Carter's soul. As soon as the 2 spirits came into contact, Superstar screamed and fell from the sky wailing. Blood kept gushing out of his 7 orifices. But before Old Carter could make any further moves, Black Dwarf rushed back again. This guy was able to gain a foothold among the 5 black generals because of his thick skin, thick flesh and infinite strength, which is quite similar to Hulk. Qin Luo originally planned to kill Black Dwarf and give his body to Hulk, but on second thought, this guy's strength is just so-so, and the upper limit is there. And Hulk has extraordinary potential, and it is a bit of a waste of talent to put it on this guy. In comparison, The purple potato spirit with the blood of the Titans is more suitable. Chapter 14. Okay, that's it now. You guys make the arrangements. It won't be long before the reinforcements from Hell and Asgard arrive. I'm going to deal with the mastermind behind this incident, Qin Luo said, and his figure disappeared in front of everyone. Soon the people in the apartment and Kamartaj took action. With the help of the wizards, a group of people related to the apartment came to the apartment. At the same time, Benedict Cumberbatch led Wang and a group of wizards to set up a teleportation array throughout New York, preparing to teleport all the people in New York out. Chapter 489. The war begins. The wizards moved very quickly with the help of the spark teleportation gate. It didn't take long. The whole of New York was covered by the teleportation array. At the same time, the warships in the sky had already pressed down. It really felt like the poem, "Black clouds are pressing down on the city and are about to destroy it." Many people related to the apartment were also taken into the apartment for protection. Among them were Happy, Ned and his grandmother, Hawkeye's girlfriend, and others. Originally, Spider-Man wanted to call his goddess, but unfortunately the wizards were too busy and he never had the chance. It was not until I called the goddess that I found out that she was not in New York City at all. She just went out to seek refuge. Suddenly, a huge spark portal appeared. Johnny, Old Carter and Ancient One led nearly 100,000 demons to appear on the street. The originally empty street suddenly became crowded. Supreme Sorcerer, the portal is ready and can send ordinary humans away from New York at any time. After seeing Ancient One, Benedict Cumberbatch immediately came over and saluted. Ancient One looked at Benedict Cumberbatch with appreciation, and then couldn't help but put his eyes on Ned. Others don't know, but she can feel how much magical talent this little black fat man has. Ned felt the slightly smiling gaze of Ancient One, and suddenly felt his neck tightened, and the whole person became uncomfortable. He couldn't help but pull the little spider beside him and said, "Peter, who is that bald auntie? Was she looking at me just now?" Spider-Man was stunned for a moment when he heard the words, and turned to look at Ancient One. But at this time Ancient One had closed his eyes and felt the teleportation array in the entire New York City. "Don't think too much, go in and hide quickly. I can't take care of you when the war starts." Spider-Man pushed Ned and said with a helpless look. He really felt helpless about his good friend. At this time, he was still thinking about these messy things. Ned scratched his hair awkwardly, supported his grandmother, and walked towards the inside of the apartment. He now knew what was going on, but the bald auntie just now really smiled at him. Above the sky, Thanos looked at the city under his feet, and a hint of fanaticism flashed in his eyes. He got the news that the terrifying human was not on the earth. At the same time, he felt the breath of 2 infinite gems on the earth. Although the whereabouts of 2 more gems are unknown, as long as he masters the power of these 2 gems, then he will have the power of 4 infinite gems. At that time, it will become extremely easy to do anything. With 4 gems in his body, even gods can suppress him easily. "Ebony Maw, give the order. I don't want to see these boring buildings anymore." Thanos turned around and said lightly to Ebony Maw beside him. Hearing this, Ebony Maw's calm face showed a trace of cruel smile. After turning around and operating together, he issued the order. In an instant, countless warships received the order. I saw all kinds of gun muzzles opened, and terrifying abilities gathered on those gun muzzles. The whole sky was reflected by those energies into a colorful appearance, which looked extremely spectacular and gorgeous. It was really the color of death. Seeing this, Guyi and others couldn't help but change their faces slightly. Even Johnny and other father-level existences, facing such dense gun muzzles, couldn't help but feel a little scalp numb. "Damn it, Johnny Carter, you guys deal with it. I'm going to start the teleportation array now," Guyi cursed, and his figure flashed, and he came to the center of the teleportation array arranged by Benedict Cumberbatch and others. The space gem at the center of the eyebrows emitted a dazzling blue light. The entire teleportation array was completely activated at this moment. Then the entire New York City was enveloped in the blue ocean, and beams of light shot up into the sky one after another, forming a mysterious symbol with special colors. The colorful sky formed a very sharp contrast with the blue ocean on the ground. If it weren't for the start of the war, I'm afraid everyone would suspect that a miracle had come. Boom boom boom. However, just as the teleportation array was about to take shape, countless gun barrels in the sky launched an attack. Various beams of light fell from the sky, like a meteor, heading straight for New York City. Seeing this, Johnny and Old Carter rushed directly into the sky, and the flames of the Holy Spirit and the Nether Flame exploded, forming a sky curtain composed of blazing fire. All the light column attacks were cut off in midair. There are such strong men on Earth. Thanos twisted the wristband on his wrist, and a trace of solemnity flashed across his expression. In his eyes, he could naturally see that this flaming sky curtain was the work of two heavenly fathers. Lord Thanos, someone is activating a large teleportation array down below. Ebony Maw knelt down beside Thanos at this time, and spoke with an anxious and solemn expression. Teleportation array? Thanos frowned even more tightly when he heard this. He looked at Ebony Maw and asked, Ebony Maw, have you broken the teleportation array for me? Ebony Maw's face suddenly turned bitter when he heard this. He knew that Thanos would ask him to break the array. Gritting his teeth, Ebony Maw said helplessly, Sorry, Lord Thanos, although the arrangement of this array is not difficult, the person sitting at the center of the array is stronger than me. I can't break this magic array. Waste, your subordinate deserves death. Hearing Thanos's low shout, Ebony Maw knelt down and kowtowed, his expression full of panic. Forget it. Launch another attack and fire all the ammunition. I want to turn this area into a barren plain. Do you understand? Thanos waved his hand irritably. Yes, Lord Thanos. Ebony Maw was as if pardoned, and hurriedly gave orders again. Thanos looked at the energy gathering on his own battleship, and a purple light emanated from the Infinity Gauntlet on his right hand. That was the light of the Power Stone. Break it for me, Thanos shouted, and the terrifying purple light wave spread out, and suddenly the flame sky curtain of Old Carter and Johnny dissipated. Chapter 490 Teleport out of the city. The power of the Rainbow Bridge rumbled. The terrifying power completely dispersed the flame sky curtain. Johnny and Old Carter's faces changed. I didn't expect that even if they joined forces, the opponent could still break it in one fell swoop. This kind of strength is probably not inferior to that of the Supreme Sorcerer. In fact, normally speaking, it is not so easy for Thanos to break the flame sky curtain of Old Carter and Johnny so easily. But with the bonus of the Power Stone, it is different. In terms of attack power alone, the Power Stone is definitely the best of the 6 gems. The destructive power is extremely amazing. As the flame sky was destroyed, the guns that were ready to fire exploded one after another, and countless attacks rained down. However, at this moment, the blue light all over New York gradually turned red, and an unprecedentedly huge spark portal appeared in the air. This spark portal was like an endless abyss, swallowing up all the attacks. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Qin Luo looked at the space battleships in the sky with a cold gaze. This time, Thanos really came out in full force. The 5 black generals, the Leviathan monster, the Chitauri, and some unknown beings. They were densely packed over the sky of New York City, almost filling up the sky, playing the human wave tactic. Right, Qin Luo muttered, and his figure flashed and disappeared on the earth. The next second, he appeared in front of the gate of hell, looking at the seal chain that was almost destroyed by 80%. Qin Luo said nothing, and the ghost power in his body gushed out, directly and completely annihilated those chains. The escaped hell trio immediately appeared in front of Qin Luo. Johnny couldn't help asking when he saw Qin Luo, Brother Qin, how is Luo Shan? Is there anything wrong? She contacted me not long ago. You are really a couple. You asked similar questions. Don't worry, Luo Shan is fine, but a little troublesome guy called. I'm afraid I have to use the power of hell this time. You can open the passage to hell directly. After Qin Luo finished speaking, his figure flashed and disappeared into hell again. The 3 people in hell looked at each other and nodded. Then Guyi directly opened a huge spark portal. Johnny and Old Carter turned into Ghost Riders. After a long roar, Countless hell ghosts and demons were summoned and quickly came to the gate of hell. Chapter 488 Hell Legion plus Asgard Warrior. Chapter 488 In Asgard, there was no movement in the sword formation arranged by Qin Luo, but everyone couldn't help but get nervous, especially Thor and Luoji. The movement on the earth and the near death of their father made the two brothers feel powerless. Qin Luo soon appeared beside Wanda. Looking at the surrounding environment, Qin Luo felt a little relieved. He turned his head and looked at Loki and Thor, who were not far away, and said, "Gather people later. A group of invaders have come to Earth. I'm afraid we will have to fight head-on. You can directly teleport the soldiers to Earth. There will be no problem." Hearing Qin Luo's words, Thor and Loki nodded without hesitation. "Sister, please help me take care of Wanda, Ganata and Sister Mai. You will follow Thor and the others to Earth to provide support, as well as Tony and Hulk." The women also nodded when they heard it, and Maypark seemed to have thought of something, looking at Qin Luo with some worry, and said, "Qin, are you going to go directly to the source of this incident?" "Sure enough, Sister Mai still knows me. The other party wants to lead me by the nose and make me run around in these three places. I really think too much. I must pull out that coward this time." Qin Luo smiled at Maypark, and then his eyes were full of murderous intent. The surrounding space seemed to be affected by Qin Luo's murderous intention, and the temperature suddenly dropped a lot. Several people shuddered. "I'll go to the Earth to make arrangements first. Thor, you should gather people as soon as possible." After Qin Luo said that, his figure disappeared again. On the Earth, seeing Qin Luo appear, everyone in the apartment was slightly relieved. The countless warships in the sky brought them too much pressure. Without Qin Luo, it was really hard for them to imagine how they should fight against these existences. "Qin Luo, what should we do now to meet the enemy?" Little Pepper walked in front of Qin Luo and asked with a serious expression. "I couldn't help but feel a little scared. It's easy to say that there are thousands of troops, but when you really face it, it's really hard to deal with it. I have notified the people from Hell and Asgard. Everyone will go to Earth to support. With the strength of both sides, it won't be a problem to deal with the invaders this time," Qin Luo said to Pepper with a relaxed expression. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Suddenly a phone rang. Qin Luo took out his mobile phone and saw that someone was calling. He answered the phone without thinking. "Mr. Qin Luo, there are invaders on Earth. You should be prepared. Evacuate those who need to be evacuated and help those who need to be helped. I'm afraid New York will suffer heavy losses this time, but it should still be able to be saved. Don't use the big mushroom. You should know the consequences of using the thing. I still have things to deal with here. If you have any questions, please contact Pepper and others." Qin Luo hung up the phone directly. Coulson and Hill of SHIELD saw the busy tone on the phone in their hands, and they felt very sad. They looked at the warships in the sky, and the feeling of being weak and helpless really made them feel very uncomfortable. However, in this situation, they could not afford to be sad. Hill and Coulson immediately issued an order to evacuate the crowd and prepare for all battles. In fact, they did not need to make special arrangements. The citizens of New York have long been accustomed to this situation. Seeing the danger coming, they immediately began to run away, and some people with capital have already entered the shelters they built at home. In short, New York is completely lively at this time. In the apartment, Hawkeye's expression was nervous and full of worry. His girlfriend is just an ordinary person, facing the current situation. Once the war starts, whether his girlfriend can survive is really another matter. There is even more regret in his heart. He and his girlfriend are almost the last layer of window paper away. They can get married on the spot immediately, but for various reasons, and his girlfriend's work problem, he did not take her to the apartment. As a result, now the crisis has come. He really regrets it. Qin Luo saw Hawkeye's state and immediately understood what was going on. Everyone in the apartment basically knew about Hawkeye's girlfriend. He looked at them and said directly, "Hawkeye and the captain, go take care of the relatives outside the apartment first, and bring them back to the apartment as much as possible." "Thank you, Mr. Qin Luo, thank you." Hawkeye looked at Qin with gratitude, but before he could finish his words of thanks, suddenly, a series of spark portals appeared in front of the apartment. Then a group of people in plain clothes came out. led by none other than Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch. Although Doctor Strange has not yet become the Sorcerer Supreme, but everyone knows in their hearts that he will be the next Sorcerer Supreme, so it is normal for him to lead the team. Mr. Qin Luo, the Sorcerer Supreme notified us to come. Just let us know if you need anything. Benedict Cumberbatch looked at Qin Luo and spoke respectfully. Many mages of Kamar-Taj knew about Qin Luo's strength, so they were quite respectful to him. Qin Luo really didn't expect that Ancient One could ask people from Kamar-Taj to help. Sure enough, Ancient One was still so reliable, but it was just right that they came. With them here, some problems are much easier to solve, especially the problem of family members in the apartment. Qin Luo was not polite and said directly, "Steven, you came at the right time. Some of my relatives and family members need help to teleport back. There are also some unnecessary ordinary people. If you have the opportunity, teleport them out of the city. It is best to build a large teleportation array, willing to serve you." Steve nodded seriously. The others did not have any emotional fluctuations. When Ancient One notified him, he told them that no matter what questions Qin Luo raised, they must respect unconditionally. Chapter 16. I don't want him to die, and the gods can't kill him. You said that breaking the seal is the means of eternity. Qin Luo's voice was filled with the power of fluctuations, and he spoke while impacting Hela's mind. Hela sneered, and her eyes regained some clarity, but she didn't know if she had been stimulated too much in a short period of time. After a quick breath, she sneered with a trembling voice, "He, you will never guess who it is, eternity." Actually, there is no need to guess. I just want to ask, it's that old bastard eternity, right? Qin Luo curled his lips in disdain and said confidently, He, self-righteous human. I said you will never guess who it is. Dare to call the name of the gods. You are destined to die miserably. Hela continued to sneer, looking at Qin Luo as if looking at a dead person. Gods are so chicken feathers. Forget it. For your father's face, I won't kill you. I'll send you to a good place to play. Qin Luo narrowed his eyes slightly, and then the special ghost mark on his arm flashed. This special ghost mark, it is nothing else but the ghost mark of death. With the mark, Qin Luo can naturally use part of the power of death. It's just that this power is different from other ghosts and gods. He is not very comfortable to use, so he has never used it. It's not bad to use it on Hela for the first time. The breath of the gods. How is it possible to have the breath of the gods at this time? Hela felt the power of Qin Luo's ghost hand, and her eyes almost popped out. Goodbye. Qin Luo's voice fell, and the power of death instantly enveloped Hela. The power of darkness intertwined and surged. Hela disappeared directly in front of Qin Luo. After dealing with Hela, Qin Luo clapped his hands and shook off the power of death in his hands. Sure enough, he still didn't like this power. There was always a little jerky feeling when using it. Brother Qin, is Johnny okay? I can't contact him. Luo Shan ran over quickly. She asked nervously. She didn't dare to disturb Qin Luo's battle just now. Now that the battle is over, she is naturally very nervous. Qin Luo's mind moved slightly after hearing this. After feeling the situation in hell, he said, "Don't worry, Johnny and the others are fine. They are just trapped temporarily. The Ancient One is breaking the seal. I'm afraid it won't be long before he appears in front of you." Luo Shan finally felt relieved. She wiped away the tears from her eyes and smiled at Qin Luo. "Okay, brothers, go back and rest. I still have to go to Asgard." Boom. A loud noise interrupted Qin Luo's words. He looked up and saw a black vortex in the sky. After seeing the scene in the black vortex, Qin Luo suddenly felt a little toothache. He couldn't help but complain. Fuck, it's endless. Chapter 487 Death Training. Thanos attacks in the Death Kingdom transmitted through Qin Luo's mark. Hela is different from those who died directly. She appeared directly in the center of the Death Kingdom. It is also the highest position in the Death Kingdom. Hela staggered and stood firm, feeling the strong death aura around her. She couldn't help but frown. She probably couldn't imagine at this moment that she would be teleported to the land of the real goddess of death, the kingdom of death. Although Qin Luo's mark burst out with the breath of death at that time. However, due to the obstruction of the ghost mark and the shock of the breath of the gods, Hela didn't really feel what kind of breath of the gods it was. Damn, What kind of hell is this place? Hela had some difficulty calming down the vitality that was constantly disappearing in her body. She found it hard to imagine that there would be such a place of death in the 9 realms. Even she, the so-called goddess of death, felt quite uncomfortable. If she was not careful, her vitality would be plundered by this place of death. Hela looked around and found that this was a palace with only gray and white tones. It looked like a gray palace of humans. In front of her was a huge throne. The entire throne was built with dry white bones and was full of extremely strong breath of death. There was no doubt that if she dared to sit on the throne, she would be completely robbed of her life by the breath of death in a few minutes. Feeling the horror of the throne, Hela turned around and left without thinking. As a result, before she took a few steps, she was shocked by an invisible force. It made her unable to move at all. A trace of panic flashed in Hela's eyes. But she soon calmed down. She tried to mobilize the divine power in her body and break through the invisible restrictions little by little. At the same time, she secretly made up her mind that if she could rush out of this damn place, she would definitely return to Asgard as soon as possible, and then use the divine power there to make those damn humans look good. However, at this moment, a slightly lazy voice sounded. "I heard that you are also the goddess of death." Hela wanted to turn around to look at the person who was speaking, but her body was suppressed and she couldn't move at all. But the person who was speaking came around in front of her. The goddess of death, wearing a gorgeous black gauze dress, looked at Hela with a smile, and that look made Hela feel uncomfortable from the bottom of her heart. "Who are you?" Hela stared at the goddess of death and asked coldly. It seemed that even if she was controlled by others, Hela could still remain calm, but the panic and fear in her eyes at this time completely betrayed her state of mind at this time. Even though the goddess of death did not show her power at this time, but with Hela's eyesight, she could still see the horror of the beautiful woman in front of her. Such a terrifying woman, coupled with the breath of death around her, and the throne that frightened her. Hela is not a fool. All these factors together make it difficult for her to guess the identity of the person in front of her. "Haven't you guessed who I am? Speaking of which, our names are still very similar." The goddess of death looked at Hela with a smile, and there was a light flashing in her dark eyes, and she had seen through Hela's heart. Hearing this, Hela confirmed what she thought in her heart, and instantly felt a bitter taste in her mouth. At the same time, she felt fear of Qin Luo for the first time in her heart. Who is that person? Why is he related to the death of the 5 gods? In fact, I should have treated you well for what you did, but the monarch didn't kill you, and I won't make decisions for him, so you should stay by my side in the future. I will train you well, and when you see the monarch again in the future, he will decide whether you exist or disappear." The goddess of death said, flicking her finger in the air, and the restrictions around Hela disappeared without a trace. Hela sat down on the ground with an unstable figure, looking up at the goddess of death in front of her. Her heart was like a raging sea and it was difficult to calm down. She really couldn't imagine that the death of one of the 5 gods would actually use the monarch to refer to an existence. And who is that existence? She didn't dare to imagine, let alone imagine. After hesitating again and again, Hela made up her mind and asked, "Lord Death, the monarch you are talking about is..." The goddess of death covered her mouth and chuckled, then pointed her finger. Suddenly a picture appeared in Hela's mind. It was no one else. It was Qin Luo. Hela's heart sank to the bottom of the valley at this time, and the whole person was like an eggplant hit by frost. A desperate smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Earth. Qin Luo looked at the huge battleship that appeared in the sky, and felt a headache. Now it really is endless. It's okay for Hela to break the seal, but Thanos actually came at this time. Obviously, he is making trouble again. But what is the ultimate goal of eternity? Does he think that with the existence of Hela and Thanos, he can drag him to the earth and unable to move? Eternity, that old bastard, must not be stupid. Death can't deal with him, let alone these father-level existences. But what is that guy's purpose? Qin Luo is a little unsure now, and this feeling of being led by the nose, it's really unpleasant. Chapter 17. His face still looked a little ferocious, but at least he looked like a human. It was just that his fangs were slightly ferocious, a bit like the appearance of the red fang in the Chinese comics. "Brother Qin, thank you." Venom felt the powerful power in his body, and his expression became excited. He could feel how much improvement Qin Luo brought him at this moment. If he was allowed to devour it himself, he might not be able to reach the current level in 100 years. "You're welcome, my friend." Qin Luo finally smiled when he saw Venom recover. After waving to Venom, his face became cold again, and he turned his head to look at the vigilant goddess of death. At this time, the goddess of death was quickly recovering the power she had consumed before. There was no way. Qin Luo gave her a feeling that was too dangerous. She had to take it seriously. But from beginning to end, Hela never had the idea of escaping. Years of unbeatable battles have made her arrogance reach a peak. Even if she was sealed by Odin, this arrogance did not diminish at all. It even showed a kind of morbidity. In short, in the entire universe, apart from the 5 great gods, no one else can be taken seriously by her. Even her father Odin was not taken seriously by her. "Earthling, I have to admit that you..." Smack! Hela felt Qin Luo's cold gaze, and her signature disdainful smile suddenly appeared on her face. As a result, before she finished speaking, her face was numb. At this time, Qin Luo slowly retracted his palm in front of Hela. Obviously, Qin Luo directly gave this niece a big slap in the face at that moment. Puff! Hela spit out a mouthful of blood, with 2 white teeth in it. "Asshole, I'll kill you." Hela's eyes were bloodshot, and the extreme humiliation made her almost lose her mind. The sword of death in her hand slashed down at Qin Luo fiercely, but the sword of death stopped in midair. Smack! Smack! Qin Luo held the sword in one hand, raised his hand and slapped Hela's face twice. At this time, he was in a very bad mood, so there was no intention to hold back at all. Hela was beaten so hard that blood gushed out of her mouth and nose, and several teeth flew out. When everyone in the apartment saw this scene, they felt a little complicated. Every time they saw Qin Luo's strength, it was like this. Their strength among ordinary people was already quite terrifying, but in front of the real strong, they were really a little bit disappointed. And the strong in their eyes was now in Qin Luo's hands like a chicken. This feeling of looking up really made them not know what to say. Hela tried her best, but the sword of death in her hand still couldn't move at all. A sense of powerlessness rose in her heart. Chapter 486 Giant Wolf Fenrir, Go Play Powerless. Unprecedented powerlessness. Hela looked at the human in front of her who seemed to her to be extremely ordinary. In a trance, she seemed to return to her childhood. The scene when her father showed his strength in front of her for the first time. "What's the matter? Do you miss your dad?" Qin Luo looked at Hela's slightly confused look, and his mind moved, and a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. Sure enough, Odin's bloodline has this special skill. "Asshole!" Hearing this, Hela's hair exploded, and black light flashed all over her body. Obviously she was going to fight to the death. Qin Luo saw this without saying a word, and the power of fluctuations all over his body burst out. A faint blue shadow of Thor enveloped Qin Luo. The black light that Hela had just emitted was directly suppressed by the shadow of Thor. Hela shook for a while, her body was unstable, and then this guy's eyes flashed with a fierce light and made a strange sound. The sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds, and then the huge figure fell from the sky. Qin Luo looked up. He laughed immediately. The giant wolf Fenrir, Hela's mount, the legendary giant beast, is said to be very powerful, but in the original plot, it seems that he was beaten by the Hulk. "You came just in time. I haven't eaten dog meat for a long time, it's so big, half hot pot and half barbecue," Qin Luo muttered, and watched the huge waves fall quietly. When the slightly weak Hela heard this, she shuddered with fear. Suddenly she regretted summoning her mount, but now it was too late to get it back. Qin Luo pointed his finger into the air. Sword energy gushed out, and countless golden chains fell from the sky. Before the giant wolf Fenrir landed, he was tied up like a big dumpling. Bang! Fenrir fell heavily to the ground, his body twitching constantly, and his mouth made bursts of wailing sounds. Qin Luo looked at the black smoke coming out of the giant wolf Fenrir. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He didn't expect that the giant wolf Fenrir had something. The dark power in his body was not bad, and it actually reacted with the Shushan sealing technique. But this little bit of power is not enough. Qin Luo's mind moved. The power of Shushan sealing technique swept up again, The giant wolf Fenrir was completely locked inside. I don't know if it was suffocated. After the giant wolf Fenrir whimpered twice, there was no movement at all. "What did you do to Fenrir?" When Hela felt the breath of the giant wolf Fenrir disappear, she became very anxious. She let go of the sword of death, turned one hand into a knife and slashed at Qin Luo fiercely. It seemed that she was really anxious. Crack! Qin Luo exerted a little force on his fingertips, and the 4 series power burst out, and the sword of death broke with a sound. At the same time, Qin Luo directly kicked Hela to the ground with a whip kick. The severe pain from the waist and abdomen made Hela almost spit out blood, but this kick also woke her up. At this time, she really realized the gap between herself and the opponent. She couldn't help but want to retreat. Hela rolled on the spot and stood up. After looking at Qin Luo angrily, she turned around and was about to run, but how could Qin Luo let her run away? No matter how fast Hela is, can it be faster than his teleportation? Qin Luo flashed and grabbed the back of Hela's neck. The huge pulling force almost broke her neck. "Tell me, who let you out? Your father almost died." After Qin Luo sealed Hela's power, he pinched her neck and spoke. However, who would have thought that after hearing what Qin Luo said, Hela suddenly shuddered and said in disbelief, "What did you say? Almost died? Odin didn't die? How could he not die? How could he not die? Why do you really want your father to die?" Qin Luo looked at the filial Hela, and couldn't help but asked curiously, "How could he not die? How is it possible? The seal was clearly broken. How is it possible?" Hela did not pay attention to Qin Luo's words, but just repeated that sentence like a madman. Chapter 18. Hela swung her sword with her left hand to force Spider-Man aside again, and then slashed her right sword towards the sky, performing a move similar to catching the moon from the bottom of the sea. The crescent-shaped black sword energy slashed out fiercely, instantly cutting the venom in the air into 2 sections. Then, several more swords were slashed out, and the venom directly turned into fragments and fell to the ground. Looking at the venom that was chopped into pieces by her, Hela's mouth showed a hint of sneer. Just as she was about to turn around to deal with Spider-Man, she instantly felt something was wrong, because she felt the fluctuation of life in the fragments on the ground. At this time, the venom on the ground bounced up instantly, and those tissues quickly connected together in midair, forming an existence similar to a black net, entangled with the goddess of death. Seeing this, Spider-Man immediately seized the opportunity, stepped forward, and punched Hela in the face several times in a row. Bang, 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 the fists and flesh intersected, making a series of muffled sounds, and Spider-Man only felt a pain in his finger bones at this time. It felt like his fist was not hitting a person's face, but hitting 100 tempered steel. On the other hand, after the goddess of death was hit by Spider-Man several times, her pale face was only slightly red. No damage was caused. Just when Spider-Man wanted to punch again, Hela's whole body shook violently. A terrifying energy burst out, forced Spider-Man back half a step. Bang, bang, bang. It was as if the sound of a rubber band was broken. The venom bound to Hela was broken by her powerful force. At this time, everyone in the apartment rushed over. The scenes just now were slow to say, but in fact, it only took 2 or 3 seconds. When the attacks of everyone in the apartment were about to fall on Hela, the venom could no longer collapse and exploded directly, turning into a raindrop-like existence. Seeing this, Spider-Man hurriedly flew forward. The venom was integrated into his body bit by bit. Facing such a trauma in a short period of time, even Venom was seriously injured. At this time, he had no strength to fight again, and could only retreat into Spider-Man's body to recuperate. Without the restraint of Venom, Hela's power burst out again, and she fiercely slashed at the people behind her. The crescent-shaped sword energy almost cut everyone in half. This sword was angry and Hela used all her strength. Everyone changed their color when they saw this. However, at this moment, the captain took a step forward. He suddenly raised the shield in his hand and pushed it towards the sword energy. Zzz, the harsh sound and sparks kept flashing from the shield. It looked like welding something with an electric welding gun. Zila suddenly a strange sound sounded, and the captain's face suddenly changed. His vibranium shield was torn apart bit by bit, and Hela's sword energy only disappeared apart. Seeing such a scene, The captain couldn't help but feel desperate in his heart, and sighed in his heart that his life was over. He couldn't help but think of all the details in the century dance in his mind. Now he really wanted to see Peggy again. At this time seemed to slow down. The captain watched his shield being completely cut into 2 sections. At the same time, the terrifying sword energy gradually approached his chest. A trace of blood appeared on his chest, and the tight combat suit broke apart. Little Pepper and others wanted to help. Even the protective shield was activated by Little Pepper, but compared to the speed of the sword energy, her energy shield was obviously much slower. Even if it could be released, the captain's chest would probably only have a layer of skin left. Just when everyone was desperate, a figure appeared beside the captain, and the scarlet and ferocious arm grabbed the dark sword energy. That's right, he grabbed the sword energy with his bare hands. Chapter 485 Qin Luo arrives. Kg of venom crack. The veins of the scarlet arm bulged slightly, and the terrifying sword energy shattered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bang! With a loud bang, the sword energy exploded. The terrifying power spread everywhere. However, in front of Qin Luo, those powers dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. But Hela didn't have Qin Luo's means. She retreated again and again until she was able to stabilize her body after retreating more than 10 meters. She looked at Qin Luo in disbelief. It was hard to imagine that her attack would be wiped out by a human with bare hands. And it was a human who looked very ordinary. Thank you for your hard work. Is everyone okay? Qin Luo shook his ghost hand and looked at the people behind him and said, everyone should be fine, except me and Venom. Thanks to you for coming in time. The captain covered the wound on his chest and said with a bitter smile on his face. Qin Luo glanced at the captain's chest injury and found that this guy was really injured. The wound on the chest was connected in a line, deep enough to see the bone, and the raisins were cut in half. Qin Luo waved his hand, and the blood turned into a stream of light and poured into the captain's body. In an instant, the wound began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye, and no scars were left. Then Qin Luo came to the little spider and put his hand on the little spider's shoulder. The dark breath of ghost energy condensed flowed through the body of the little spider, and instantly pulled out venom. Countless pieces of venom bodies were pulled out. Many of them were slowly merging together. Obviously venom was repairing itself. Brother Qin, venom will be fine, right? The little spider looked at the broken venom and couldn't help but asked with concern. Don't worry. Nothing will happen with me here, Qin Luo said, looking at the head condensed by venom and said, Venom, I will help you recover your body in a while, and give you a chance by the way. Don't resist. Venom heard this and nodded without hesitation. After such a long contact, Venom knew what kind of person Qin Luo was, so there was no psychological resistance at all, just nodded without a trace. Now he was really a little weak, and he couldn't even speak. This almost exhausted all his strength. Qin Luo saw this and didn't say any more nonsense, and pointed his sword finger at the center of Venom's eyebrows. The ghost mark of Kja, the afterimage on the ghost hand, lit up with a dark purple light. Then Kja's unique dark ore emerged into Venom's body. The process was a little faster than Qin Luo imagined. I didn't expect that Venom and Kja's compatibility would be so high. It completely exceeded the compatibility between Loki and Saya, and was almost the same as old Carter. Soon Kja's ghost mark appeared at the center of Venom's eyebrows. The remaining body around Venom seemed to be attracted by something. It attached to it instantly. I saw bursts of black light flashing, and the complete Venom appeared in front of everyone again. But at this time, Venom was no longer the monster he was before. He had completely turned into a human form. The muscles on his body were extremely solid, and he was no more than the captain. Chapter 19. However, the attacks of these weapons still did not hurt Hela. Instead, Hela, who felt the familiar breath, was unprecedentedly angry. She glared at the weapons in the hands of the three people, and red blood instantly covered the whites of her eyes, and her eyes turned red. Asgard's weapons, it seems that you are Odin's lackeys left on Earth. Hela roared, and the long sword in her hand chopped out continuously, and the sword energy scattered. It bombarded directly at everyone. Facing the violent sword energy, everyone did not dare to be careless, and they all used their own means to dodge. Luo Shan's thigh was almost cut off by the sword energy, but fortunately there was Pepper, who opened the protective shield in time and barely blocked Hela's deadly sword energy. Hela kicked the captain in front of her away, waving the long sword in her hand, and rushed towards Natasha and her sister with hatred. The little spider fell on Hela's body with several spider silks in a row, but neither lightning nor poison had much effect on Hela. Spider-Man could only use his brute strength to hold back Hela's attack. However, Hela's strength was obviously superior to Spider-Man. Spider-Man only temporarily stopped Hela's attack, then he was dragged over, but the time for the delay was enough. Pepper and Roshan attacked almost at the same time. The arc pulse cannon and the hellfire summoned by Roshan fell on Hela. The power of hell? What the hell are these humans? Hela felt the power of everyone at this time, and couldn't help but feel a little surprised. She felt the power of hell, dark hells, Asgard and so on in these humans. These are not powers from the earth. Hela was a little unsure about the power of the hellfire. With a flash of her figure, she dodged the hellfire summoned by Roshan. As for the arc pulse cannon, it was destroyed again by Hela with the sword of death. The hellfire fell to the ground, forming a hellfire rock giant, which pounced on Hela. Feel the power of the hellfire rock giant. Hela's vigilance was relieved. This level of hell energy was not in her eyes. The seemingly majestic hellfire was directly cut in half by Hela's sword and dissipated in the air. As the hellfire was extinguished, Roshan felt a sweetness in her throat and couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The summoned hellfire was connected to her mind. Now that the hellfire was killed instantly, she would inevitably be implicated. Daredevil and the captain rushed forward and began to beat Hela. However, the gap between the two sides was really big, except for the captain, who could resist Hela's attack with a shield in his hand. The rest of the people were basically not Hela's opponents. After just a few moves, Daredevil and others flew backwards. The venom suit on Spider-Man's body swelled up at this time. After multiple fusions, Spider-Man and Venom's fusion has many more states. For example, now, the venom on Spider-Man's body enveloped him. It made him extremely strong, probably not inferior to the Hulk. The little spider rushed forward. The huge black fist hit Hela hard. Just this one blow knocked Hela back 5 or 6 meters. This shows how powerful the little spider is at this time. Seeing this, everyone's morale soared. The performance of the little spider was really eye-catching. Feeling the power on her arm, Hela was a little confused. She didn't expect that the little spider would have such power. It was even stronger than the pet she raised. But strength alone couldn't do anything to her. "You earthlings, prepare to face the wrath of the goddess of death," Hela roared. The death breath around her body suddenly surged. The terrifying power made the little spider who launched the charge again involuntarily retreat several steps. The little spider was like this, and the people around him were naturally not much better. They flew backwards one after another. Chapter 485, Almost Dying. Grabbing the sword with bare hands. Click, click. The substance like black lightning kept flashing around Hela. The terrifying power caused the land to crack continuously. The venom attached to Spider-Man kept changing. His body began to shrink slightly, and Spider-Man's body shrank by more than half at a speed visible to the naked eye. Basically, he changed from the size of the Hulk to the size of the Captain. In this state, the defense of the venom was almost raised to the extreme. Obviously, Hela's breath made him feel absolutely dangerous, so he had such a reaction. The captain tightly clenched the shield in his hand. Cold sweat oozed out of his palm. Everyone in the apartment also felt deeply powerless at this time. There was no way, because the strong men in the apartment were not at home. Among the people in the apartment, the strongest one was Spider-Man, but he could only barely deal with Hela in normal state at most. The momentum of Hela in a rage made Spider-Man feel weak in his hands and feet. "Earthlings, I didn't expect that before entering Asgard, you rubbish would force me to use my real strength." Hela looked at everyone in the apartment, her eyes as sharp as a knife. The next moment she locked her eyes on Spider-Man. With a flash of his body, he rushed to the front of the little spider in an instant. The little spider's hair exploded all over his body, and the venom was so scared that it almost retracted into his body. Fortunately, the spider sense was still quite powerful. The little spider twisted his body and almost bent down, and only then did he narrowly avoid Hela's sword. However, The sharp sword energy still cut off a small piece of Venom's tissue. Venom in a defensive state. His body was very tough, and the sword energy passed through his body, which felt like using a knife to cut a tire. After the small piece of tissue fell to the ground, it bounced a few times. Hela narrowed her eyes slightly, and the two swords in her hand slashed at the little spider. The sword energy was everywhere. Under extreme danger, the little spider's spider sense burst out unprecedentedly, and his body kept twisting, and he avoided Hela's slashing in extreme danger. It was just that the little spider dodged, but the venom attached to his body could not avoid it. Tissues were constantly cut off, and these tissues were large and small, and they kept jumping around on the ground. It looked like a passive skill of a certain biochemical demon. "You bitch, you're going too far." At this time, the venom attached to the little spider could no longer be restrained, and it suddenly drilled out of its body and flew into the air. It turned into a black shadow and smashed towards Hela fiercely. Chapter 20. Oh my god, how did she do that? How much hairspray did she use? Spider-Man looked at Hela's exaggerated hairstyle and couldn't help but complain. The people around him couldn't help but twitch their mouths when they heard it. This kid is really careless. It's time, and he still cares about other people's hairstyles. But because of this, the tension in everyone's hearts was mostly dissipated because of Spider-Man's words. "The strong men of the earth, I allow you to submit to the new master of the 9 realms, the goddess of death, Hela." Hela looked at everyone, and her eyes were like looking at a group of ants. When everyone heard the name of the goddess of death, they shuddered involuntarily. After all, they were the ones who witnessed Qin Luo's battle with the goddess of death. The power of the goddess of death was engraved in their bones. But soon everyone came back to their senses. Although the goddess of death in front of them was also very powerful, but the gap with that goddess of death seemed a bit big. In front of her, everyone can still maintain the belief in fighting, but in front of the real goddess of death, they really can't think of fighting. The difference is immediately judged. As if she felt the slightly strange gazes of the crowd, the brows of the goddess of death, Hela could not help but slightly frown. She looked at the crowd impatiently and said, "Now you have no choice. If you don't surrender to the feet of the goddess of death, then prepare to face death." This goddess of death. We have seen a goddess of death. Do you have any relationship with her? Or are you her spokesperson? Spider-Man couldn't help but raise his hand and asked. Hearing this, Hela's heart couldn't help but tremble. How could she not know the real goddess of death? It can be said that she is her ultimate goal. She never thought that these ignorant mortals had actually seen the true appearance of the real goddess of death. As for the spokesperson, how could she dare to answer? Once that person knew, she would be finished. "Human, my patience has disappeared. You guys go to hell." As soon as Hela finished speaking, her figure flashed and appeared in front of Spider-Man, and the long sword in her hand slashed at Spider-Man fiercely. "Be careful." Venom's voice rang in Spider-Man's heart, and at the same time, it turned into a venom suit that enveloped Spider-Man. With the help of his spider sense, Spider-Man also reacted immediately and subconsciously used the shaving. He disappeared in front of Hela in a flash. After the venom suit absorbed the dark heart of the Dark Elves, it was more comfortable to use the power of the Dark Elf Elders. The moment Spider-Man dodged Hela's attack, he disappeared in front of her. The 5 people saw that Hela had taken action. They didn't hesitate and went forward to beat Hela. The first one to attack was Pepper. I saw several devices flying out from behind her, and then several arc pulse cannons blasted towards Hela. Sizzle. Hela didn't dodge at all when she saw this, and raised the sword of death in her hand, accompanied by a sharp sound. The arc pulse cannon that was bombarding was directly split apart. However, a bomb flashing with green light flew in front of Hela at this time. Boom! With a loud bang, the pumpkin bomb exploded, creating waves of air, causing everyone's steps to stagnate. Everyone saw Hela being blown up at such a distance. They were all a little excited. They knew the power of the old Green Goblin's pumpkin bomb very well. At such a distance, it would definitely cause considerable damage to the opponent. However, as the smoke dissipated, the scene in front of them made everyone's heart sink. They saw Hela standing in front of them intact. Not to mention the injuries on her body. Even her clothes were not dirty at all. Is there such a thing? Norman Osborn was shocked when he saw this. He didn't expect that his strongest attack would have no effect on Hela. At this time, Hela's eyes, like a blade, locked on him. The long sword in her hand suddenly swung towards Norman Osborn. Like a sharp arrow, it came in the blink of an eye. The speed was so fast that everyone almost couldn't react. At the critical moment, a spider silk appeared out of thin air and stuck to Norman Osborn's body. Directly pulled Norman Osborn off the Batmobile. Boom. Just when Norman Osborn left the aircraft, Hela's death sword landed on the aircraft. In the blink of an eye, the aircraft broke into two sections and exploded. Norman Osborn fell into Spider-Man's arms, looking at the exploding aircraft, his forehead full of cold sweat. Just now it was really too close. The aircraft was cut open by the opponent's sword. He had no doubt that the sword could easily split itself in half. "Peter, thank you." Norman Osborn looked at Spider-Man beside him, and all the fear of death in his heart turned into gratitude. The little Green Goblin also cast an extremely grateful look at this time. He was also scared to death just now. Chapter 484. Everyone is fighting hard. Spider-Man shook his head. "Uncle Osborn, you should take a rest first. This guy is too scary." Norman Osborn couldn't help but feel a little bitter when he heard it, nodded slightly, and retreated behind everyone. Although Spider-Man's words were a bit direct, but he knew it very well in his heart. His strength can no longer keep up with everyone else, as can be seen from the attack just now. The other party killed him like killing a chicken. If he got involved here, he would die without knowing how he died. Norman Osborn wanted to call his son back. After all, the Green Goblin's current strength is not much stronger than his. But after seeing the fighting spirit in the Green Goblin's eyes, the old Green Goblin Norman Osborn opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say much. "Bug, I'll kill you first." Hela retracted her sword. She looked at Spider-Man with anger. In her opinion, Spider-Man's behavior was tantamount to challenging her dignity and was absolutely unforgivable. However, Spider-Man, under the cover of venom, looked at Hela fearlessly. The spiderweb launcher was also adjusted to the most powerful lightning spider silk and the latest developed highly toxic spider silk. The destructive power of these two spider silks is quite amazing. It can be seen that the old Green Goblin was almost dead and forced Spider-Man into a hurry. "No matter who you are, don't even think about hurting anyone in the apartment." The captain rushed out at this time, waving the shield in his hand and smashing it hard at Hela. Seeing this, Hela didn't hesitate and raised her hand to slash with a sword. Swish, accompanied by a sharp sound. Hela's sword left a deep sword mark on the captain's shield, but it still didn't cut through the captain's vibranium shield. Seeing this, Hela was a little stunned. She didn't expect that there would be someone on Earth who could block the power of her sword. Hawkeye and Natasha's sisters cooperated with the captain tacitly. Taking advantage of Hela's distraction, the three attacked Hela from three directions respectively. The three used magic weapons obtained in Asgard, which were much more powerful than the Rubik's Cube weapons. Chapter 21. Mistfoot Middle. Rainstorm. Maypark turned into a tornado, and countless wind blades were kicked out from her toes. At the same time, a fairy-like existence surrounded her. Every time a wind blade was kicked out, the fairy would disperse a wisp of clear and spiritual breath and attach it to the wind blade. This made the sharpness and speed of those Mistfoot wind blades even better. This fairy was one of the treasures Qin Luo selected for Maypark in the treasure house of the fairy palace, the wind elf. The blessing of wind can be attached to Maypark's attack. It greatly increases its attack power and allows Maypark to master the power of wind, thereby achieving many convenient abilities such as flying. With the blessing of the wind elf, Maypark's attack ability is even sharper. But even so, these attacks only destroyed 7 or 8 destruction monsters. "Damn it, I'll eat you." Seeing those monsters getting closer and closer to the 9-star sea, Ganata suddenly became anxious. Grinning and two small tiger teeth flashing cold light. Roaring, he rushed towards those monsters. Before Qin Luo left, he clearly told them to help take care of Wanda. Ganata didn't want to make any mistakes in Qin Luo's entrustment. However, just when she was about to fall into the monster group, a warm big hand pressed her little head. "How many times have I told you not to eat anything randomly? Otherwise, diarrhea will be bad." Hearing Qin Luo's familiar voice, Ganata's face suddenly showed a silly smile. Qin Luo looked at the monsters with cold eyes. With his eyesight, He could naturally see that these monsters were all brainless, so there was no nonsense. He raised his hand directly, and the ancient short sword appeared in his hand and turned into a long sword. The long sword was swung. Thousands of sword rains fell from the sky, which was the Shushan sword controlling technique. 10,000 swords. Countless long swords seemed to have eyes, accurately hitting every monster. In an instant, countless monsters of destruction vanished in front of the three women, disappearing without a trace. The three space cracks seemed to be affected by the sword energy at this time. The cracks kept trembling, and the transmitted power became unstable. Qin Luo held Ganata with one hand, and held a long sword with the other hand, slashing at the three cracks. The sword energy of the sword slashed through the air and gushed out. The violent sword energy instantly cut the three cracks, and at the same time, the sword energy poured into the cracks. A clear scream came faintly from the cracks. At the same time, the space cracks were also destroyed by Qin Luo's sword. Qin, what happened? Why did someone suddenly attack us? And Odin, this should be someone targeting us. May Parker looked at Qin Luo and asked seriously, it is indeed targeting us, but it is not a human, but a god. Qin Luo recalled the breath of the monsters with destructive power just now, and his eyes were full of coldness. He could sense that these monsters all had a breath similar to that of annihilation. Z.Br It is obvious that these monsters are all from the hands of annihilation. However, Qin Luo had a hunch in his heart, although on the surface, these monsters all came from annihilation. But in fact, it should be someone else's hand. After the five gods, death, annihilation, and star swallowing can basically be rejected. Only infinity and eternity are left. From a certain perspective, these two gods are completely in the same boat. Is there any question as to the result? You have offended me, eternity. It seems that you want to play a big game. Qin Luo raised his eyes slightly, and the flashing cold light almost froze the entire airspace. Qin, even Odin was affected, and Hell and Earth Eternity may have taken action. May Parker said with a worried look on his face. There is a little spider on the earth. It would be strange if she is not worried. Odin was implicated because of his daughter's unsealing. His daughter must have made some kind of deal with Eternity, and the target of the deal is probably the hero apartment. There are those three guys in hell, so there is no need to worry. On the contrary, those monsters here are just testing, and there will definitely be more powerful guys coming to Asgard in a while. That bastard Eternity, his purpose is probably to drag me to Asgard, so that he can attack Hell and the Earth. His main target should still be the Earth. May Park looked even more worried when he heard this, and his eyebrows were almost twisted into a knot. Don't worry, Eternity is too underestimated me. Do you really think that sending some rotten sweet potatoes and rotten bird eggs can delay my steps? Qin Luo patted May Park's shoulder and comforted him. After saying that, Qin Luo stretched out his hand and waved, and the god and demon sword beside Long Ku flew directly into Qin Luo's hand. As the sword energy continued to flow into the god and demon sword, the sword suddenly burst into a dazzling light. Then the god and demon sword split into two into four, and soon the surrounding space was almost filled with the god and demon sword. Qin Luo made a sword finger with his hand, and the god and demon sword scattered under the traction of the sword energy. Soon a pagoda-like existence was formed, covering the entire Asgard including the Sea of Nine Stars. Qin Luo made a continuous gesture with his hands, and the sword tower began to have a thread of connection, and the terrifying fluctuations spread. Seeing this sword tower, Qin Luo nodded with satisfaction. The sword formation of Shushan is still very good, especially when the god and demon sword is used as the center of the formation. The power is even higher. It is not an exaggeration to say that with the existence of this sword formation, even if the gods want to break it, they have to spend some effort. Chapter 483 Hela arrives. Green Goblin almost dies on Earth. Almost all the people who can come to the hero apartment have arrived. They stood in front of the door of the apartment, looking at the street in the distance. Their expressions became extremely serious. Pepper, Spider-Man, Green Goblin, and so on all brought their own equipment. Through the cooperation with the new shield and the help of Jarvis and Red Queen, Hela's whereabouts were immediately transmitted. At the same time, there was also an analysis of the opponent's strength. as well as the situation of the surrounding personnel, etc. It must be said that S.H.I.E.L.D. is indeed unique in terms of combat assistance. It can make the people in the hero apartment no longer have many worries. The enemy this time is not simple. Red Queen and Jarvis have given a very high S-level danger evaluation. Everyone be careful. After checking Hela's position again, Pepper turned around and looked at everyone, and said with a serious expression. Everyone nodded when they heard it. There was a trace of solemnity in their eyes. The evaluation of Red Queen and Jarvis has always been extremely accurate. Being able to be rated S-level is enough to explain a lot of things. This so-called rating is completely something made up by Red Queen and Jarvis. You have to know that Spider-Man is only rated A-level. You can imagine how powerful the person is. Soon everyone saw the enemy who attacked this time, Hela, at the end of the road. At this time, Hela had transformed into the Queen of Blades, with flowing hair and holding the Sword of Death in both hands. She walked towards the hero apartment step by step with a cat-like pace. Her speed seemed slow, but in fact it was extremely fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, Hela came from the end of the road to the front of everyone. As soon as she approached, the strong murderous intent on Hela's body directly pressed on everyone. Everyone present couldn't help but feel a little frightened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22. There was no light in the cloudy old eyes. They didn't look like the eyes of a living person. Suddenly, Odin's body began to tremble, and a faint white light emanated from the surroundings. With the appearance of the white light, Odin appeared to be in a state of last breath. His pale face turned slightly red, and his cloudy eyes also had a little more spirit. Thor, Loki. Odin spoke slowly. His voice became hoarse and blurred. He stretched out his old hand, gently touched the hair of the two, and then fell down a little weakly. Father, Father. Thor and Loki spoke in unison, and at the same time grabbed Odin's old hand, and tears flowed even more violently. From now on, Asgard will be handed over to you. Don't fight anymore. Your sister has come out. She is bound to kill into Asgard. She is very powerful. In Asgard, her strength will not be inferior to my peak period, or even surpass my peak period. As long as Asgard is immortal, she will not die. Remember, Asgard is all the people in Asgard, not just a place. If possible, give up this land, go to Earth, and rebuild a new home. Odin looked at the two brothers. His tone was gentle but every word was clear. Odin seemed to have used some kind of power to say these words, and they were all engraved in the hearts of the two brothers. Qin Luo also heard these words, finally understood why Odin suddenly became like this. In the original plot, after Odin was old and dying, Hela broke the seal, came to Earth, and crushed Thor's hammer. This means that Hela's seal is absolutely related to Odin's life. The day Hela broke the seal, Odin died. But from the current situation, it was not Odin's weakness that caused Hela to break the seal. It was Hela's breaking of the seal that caused Odin to be severely injured. The two brothers were so excited that they couldn't speak at all, and could only nod their heads continuously. I say, Brother Odin, you treat me as a dead person. Thor and Loki are from my apartment. I will protect them. Do you think a Western goddess of death can be my opponent? Qin Luo stepped forward and said with a smile. Odin's eyes lit up when he heard this. He smiled easily and said, Brother Qin, I will leave them to you in the future. Thank you. Don't be in a hurry to thank you. You should take care of your son yourself in the future. Qin Luo interrupted Odin and came to him in an instant. The hand-knotted sword pointed at his forehead. Seeing Qin Luo's move, the queen's face showed a bit of excitement. She knew very well how strong Qin Luo was. If he took action, this deadly situation might turn around. The queen immediately stopped the treatment, fearing that her power would affect Qin Luo's performance. It was also at this moment that Odin's body twitched involuntarily. The only vitality in his body began to dissipate, and the originally restless energy in his body became even more violent. However, at this moment, Qin Luo's body burst into red light. These lights all contain extremely strong vitality. It was the blood and chi diversion. As the blood and chi continued to flow into Odin's body, his dissipated life was stopped and began to warm up. Of course, a blood and chi diversion still couldn't save Odin. His condition was so bad that it couldn't be described as running out of oil. Qin Luo let the blood and chi flow into Odin's body along the blood and chi diversion. At the same time, he used the power of fluctuations to forcibly suppress the violent energy in his body. Then he used the sword energy through the secret technique of Shushan to completely seal up these suppressed energies. Without the disturbance of these energies, Odin's condition was obviously much better, but this is not enough. Qin Luo used the blood and energy that was poured into Odin's body to perform the move of death resistance. Death resistance was originally only available to people like Qin Luo who used blood and energy. However, after breaking through the Emperor blood-killing heaven, as long as there is blood and energy, these restrictions are not a problem at all. Death resistance continuously transforms the blood and energy in Odin's body into vitality, filling his body full of holes. Qin Luo took his hand away, felt Odin's condition again, and shook his head secretly in his heart. This can only keep him alive. His body is too old, and it is impossible to wake up in a short time. Only when his body is nourished by blood and energy to a certain extent, can he have a chance to wake up. Now he can only forcibly hang on to his life. Uncle Qin, how is my father? My father. Thor was a little incoherent at this time. Qin Luo waved his hand and said seriously, don't worry, he's fine for now, but he's too seriously injured. I'm afraid he needs to rest for a while, but don't worry, his life is saved. Thank you, Uncle Qin. Loki has now managed to calm down. He knelt in front of Qin Luo and kowtowed 3 times. His forehead was bruised. No need to thank you. Now the focus is on the earth. Your sister. Qin Luo's face suddenly changed before he finished speaking. His figure flashed and he disappeared directly from the spot. In the sea of 9 stars. May Park and the other girls looked at the space crack that suddenly appeared, their expressions full of solemnity. May Park was covered with armed colors. Ganata put on a battle suit, and the blue-clothed nightshade transformed into a red-clothed nightshade. They were all in a state of combat readiness. Soon several monsters crawled out of the crack. These monsters have humanoid forms. Some are beastly, and some are like a pool of mud. However, these monsters all have one characteristic. That is the breath of destruction. They all have an extremely terrifying breath of destruction, as if they want to destroy everything. Long Kua said nothing, raised the Qian Kun bow and shot an arrow. Swoosh! The red arrow turned into a stream of light and directly pierced the head of a humanoid monster. The humanoid monster disappeared instantly. At the same time, the red arrow also disappeared. Be careful, don't fight these monsters in close combat. The power in their bodies is very difficult to deal with. Long Kua felt the arrow dissipate and immediately warned. Chapter 482 Destruction Breath. Set up sword formation. There are more and more destructive monsters. Long Kua and the 3 girls were not polite. Each of them launched a long-range attack. Lan pointed at the gun. Red arrow. Cosmic energy. Various attacks bombarded those destructive monsters. While destroying the monsters, the power they exerted would also be attached to the destructive power and finally dissipate. Due to the special reasons of these monsters and their strength, they simply couldn't kill them on a large scale. They could only rely on attacking to wear them down bit by bit. But soon 2 space cracks appeared around them again. Monsters of similar size rushed out of the cracks. In the blink of an eye, thousands of monsters were scattered around the 9-star sea. If it was these monsters that attacked Asgard, without Qin Luo's action, Asgard's casualties would definitely rise to a terrifying number. Even more than half of the people in the apartment would be killed or injured. Compared to these monsters, the Dark Elves are simply weak. Chapter 23. After saying that, the person waved his hand. Strange energy spread out. Suddenly, the chains that sealed Hela turned into nothingness and disappeared in this land. At the same time, the person also disappeared without a trace. Hela, who regained her freedom, screamed to the sky, and the terrifying power caused the surrounding space to collapse. The scene of the earth appeared before her eyes. Chapter 480 Shield asks for help. Odin is dying. Odin, I'm back. Asgard, the 9 realms will eventually turn into dust. Hela roared, and the space around her was completely shattered. The next moment she stood on the street of the earth. Countless passers-by saw Hela suddenly appear, with surprise and confusion. In S.H.I.E.L.D., since Nick Fury was killed, Hill and Coulson had to hold up the situation. The people like Hydra were slaughtered by Captain and others. The entire S.H.I.E.L.D. has completely become a solid block. The top and the bottom are united. The power of the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. was not reduced, but increased a lot. However, the top combat power was still a little incomplete. There was no way, and those with some strength were basically sucked into the apartment by Qin Luo. Where would anyone work for them? The energy detector and S.H.I.E.L.D. suddenly exploded, and the red alarm light rang inside S.H.I.E.L.D. What's going on? Is there a problem with the hero apartment again? Hill pushed open the door of Coulson's studio with a serious expression and asked, "It's not a problem with the hero apartment. Qin Luo and others haven't come back yet. They seem to have left the Earth, and only some of them have returned. The one who burst out with special power is a sudden woman. The energy she contains has exceeded the upper limit of the detector." Coulson pointed to Hela, who suddenly appeared on the screen with a serious expression and said, "A strong person who suddenly appeared? Do we have a chance to take her in?" Hill's expression was a little excited just now, but what happened on the screen made her expression sluggish for a moment, because she saw that several gangsters who tried to get close to Hela were split in half on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere, and the water immediately flowed all over the floor. Hill had seen murder before, and it was common for her, but such a decisive killing, even in the face of such a bloody scene, without blinking an eye, that was not something that ordinary people could do. At least it proved that this woman was not a good person. On the screen, pedestrians around were frightened and ran away in panic. Anyone who approached Hela within a few meters was killed on the spot without exception. Any vehicles or anything else that blocked the road were also broken into two pieces. Seeing this scene, even a fool would know that Hela was not a decent existence. She was clearly a newly born supervillain. Damn it, Coulson, contact the people in the hero apartment immediately. It's probably difficult for us to deal with such a character. Hill slammed the table heavily, looking as if she was constipated. If possible, she really didn't want to ask for help from the people in the hero apartment. After all, they were enemies of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a sense, but the current situation forced her to seek support. S.H.I.E.L.D. has just stabilized. If there are any more heavy casualties, people's hearts will easily disperse. More importantly, she can't be as cruel as Nick Fury and can't watch her men die. Who knows what price to pay to kill such an enemy? Coulson looked at Hill and nodded in agreement. He picked up the phone and called Pepper directly. He and Pepper had some friendship and could still talk. Now the main people in the apartment are basically not there, so contacting Pepper is the best choice. "Yeah, I know. Please, we will assist you." Coulson put down the phone and his expression was a little calmer. "What do you mean?" Hill asked hurriedly when he saw this. "Peter Parker has predicted the appearance of the enemy. Now the people in the hero apartment have gathered and started to contact Qin Luo and other strong men. They will take action. We just need to assist them," Coulson said with a bit of ease on his face. With the help of the hero apartment, they believed that it would not be too difficult to solve this matter. "Okay, I'll arrange it now." Hill nodded heavily, turned around and left the office, and arranged the actions of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Ascrit, Qin Luo and others were still watching Thor and Loki fighting. After Jane Fortes used the fragments of the Thunderblade Thousand Blades to leave a few cuts on Loki's butt, he put away the knife and watched the fun. Only the two brothers were left chasing each other on the Rainbow Bridge. Facing Thor's attack, Loki could only flee. Occasionally, he could fight back. The two were in a very embarrassed state, and Loki and Thor were covered with frost and charred. But it seemed that Loki was more disadvantaged. Suddenly the whole Asgard shook, and Thor and Loki both stood still. Thor's hammer fell to the ground with a bang, hitting Loki's feet. But even so, Loki still had no reaction, just staring blankly at the place where Asgard was. Qin Luo also stood up suddenly at this time, with a look of surprise and confusion on his face. The women were confused when they saw this, and they didn't know what had happened to make their men look like this. "What's wrong, Qin? Is there anything wrong?" Maypark asked with concern. "Damn it, Odin, that old bastard, is in trouble. His life is declining rapidly. This guy is going to die. You help me take care of Wanda first. Don't let some covetous people succeed. I'll go and see." After saying that, Qin Luo's figure flashed and appeared beside Thor and Loki, who looked sluggish. After catching the two of them, he immediately moved to Odin's bedroom. At this time, Odin was lying on his big bed, bleeding from all 8 orifices. The whole person's breath dropped sharply, and his vitality disappeared like a flood. The majestic divine power in the body began to swell due to physical reasons. It made Odin, who was already in a bad state, even worse. Fortunately, the queen is here again. A milky white light flashes on her hands. She gritted her teeth and focused her power into Odin's body, stabilizing his power. She continued to maintain his vitality. Unfortunately, the queen's strength is really limited. She has not yet reached the level of a father. All she can do is a drop in the bucket. She can't solve the problem at all. She can only delay Odin's death. Chapter 481, Forcibly Hanging On to Life. The enemy attacks. Qin Luo looked at Odin. He could feel that Odin became like this because of the backlash of his own power. Father, Thor and Loki finally came to their senses at this time. Looking at Odin, who was almost dying, they rushed over directly, kneeling beside the bed. Perhaps because they were afraid of disturbing the queen, the two of them didn't make any sound after shouting that. They covered their mouths tightly with their hands. Their eyes were red, and tears kept flowing down their eyes. At this time, Odin's eyes twitched, as if he heard the call of the two brothers. He slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 24. I don't know much either, but I just felt a terrifying force appearing on the earth. That kind of force scares me. Spider-Man shook his head, with a look of fear on his face. When Roshan saw Spider-Man's look, he didn't hesitate any longer. He immediately took out a small skull pendant. As the strange spell was chanted in Roshan's mouth, a trace of azure flame appeared on the skull pendant in his hand. This skull pendant was given to Roshan by Johnny. It contained a trace of his soul power. As long as Roshan activated it with a spell, he could sense it immediately. In hell, Johnny felt the call of the soul, and his expression changed slightly. Old Carter and Guyi couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What's wrong, Johnny?" "Something seems to have happened on the earth. Roshan called me. I have to go back and take a look first," Johnny said, and the knife flashed, and the streamer star knife appeared in his hand. The next moment, Johnny chopped down into the void, and the flame of the Holy Spirit burst out. Prepared to open a space channel to return to the apartment. However, the method of returning that had always been successful did not work this time. Not only did it not split the space, but it also sent a special recoil force. The knife in Johnny's hand almost slipped out of his hand. "Damn it, what's going on?" Johnny looked at the streamer star knife in his hand, his eyes full of doubt. The expressions of Old Carter and Ancient One also changed at this time. Chapter 479, Hell Seal. Goddess breaks the seal. Johnny shuttled back and forth between the human world and hell. Hell was basically like his backyard. He could get in by just pushing the door lightly. But now the door was sealed. The important thing was, they had no idea when the door was sealed. You have to know that the three of them were all Heavenly Father level beings. It was understandable that Johnny, a newly promoted strong man, could not sense it, but it was too abnormal that Old Carter and Ancient One could not sense it, especially Ancient One. She had a space gem in her body, and she was too sensitive to the power of space. The expressions of the three people were extremely ugly. Old Carter took out the Hell Soul devouring cannon, and the dark flame in his body merged into it. Boom! With a loud noise, the space shook, but it only shook a few times. The attack that could break the space had no effect at this time. Old Carter frowned. The dark flame in his body rolled again, and when he wanted to fire another shot, he was stopped by Guyi. "Don't try again. The seals around cannot be broken by force. Unless you have the strength of Qin Luo, it will only destroy this hell." "What's going on? Who has such means, and why do they want to seal us?" Johnny felt the solid space surround him, and said with a very ugly expression, "Who else has such means? In addition to the 5 gods, who else can seal a space and seal 3 father-level beings?" Guyi showed a sneer on his face, and his eyes became extremely cold. "God damn it, could it be Death? Damn it, is she going to attack Brother Qin?" Johnny was so angry that his teeth were almost broken. The flames around him kept jumping, causing the temperature of the surrounding air to rise sharply. No, Death's injuries should not have recovered yet. Qin Luo had injured her badly at the beginning. Even if she recovered and came to seek revenge, she would go to Qin Luo. Why did she seal us in hell? Old Carter looked at Guyi with doubts and confusion in his eyes and asked, "It's not that simple. If I'm not mistaken, it was Eternity who attacked this time. Although his main target was Qin Luo, his target should be Hell and Earth. Now there must be something wrong on Earth, and Eternity doesn't want us to help." When Guyi said this, his expression was extremely cold, and there was a rare trace of anger in his eyes. This supreme mage, who was as calm as water, was now also angered by the scene in front of him. It must be said that Guyi, the 1,000-year-old mage, really did not live in vain. Her guess was very accurate. The seal of Hell was indeed the work of Eternal, and he also made a big thing on Earth. This matter will even affect Asgard. It can be said that Qin Luo's existence has been fully attacked. Then what should we do now? If it is really as you said, the signal that Luo Shan sent me should be asking for support. They are probably in danger now. Johnny was a little anxious at this time. He and Luo Shan had experienced separation and reunion. He was not only deeply in love with this lover, but also full of guilt and indebtedness. If Luo Shan got into trouble, he would really go crazy. Don't worry, it's just a matter of time to break the space seal with the space gem. Give me some time, Guyi said, sitting cross-legged in the air. A blue light flashed between his eyebrows, and the space gem slowly emerged between his eyebrows. Then a dazzling blue light burst out. This light formed a ripple and spread throughout Hell. The souls serving sentences in Hell and the guarding demons were so frightened that they could not help but kneel down and worship. After the blue light spread throughout the Hell, golden chains emerged with the naked eye. These chains tightly bound the entire Hell space. However, several chains had broken. Judging from the broken marks, they should be caused by Johnny and Old Carter's attack just now. Just as Master Guyi just said, there were obvious spots in the space where the golden chains broke. The space there has been annihilated because of the terrifying power. If these golden chains are really broken by force, I am afraid that the moment the chains are broken, it will be the time for Hell to be destroyed. The power of the destruction of a world, even if they three do not die, they will be skinned. Eternal's vicious mind can be seen. If it weren't for Guyi, the trouble would be really big. Johnny and Old Carter looked at the broken chains with a sullen face, their fists clenched and creaking, and their eyes were filled with anger. Guyi calmed down. She mobilized the power of space and merged it with her own secret magic power. She began to spread towards the chains. The two forces collided, and the golden chains suddenly burst into a dazzling light. She tried to dispel Guyi's power. However, Guyi's power seemed to be a maggot on the tarsal bone, tirelessly entangled on those golden chains. Finally, several chains could not withstand Guyi's power and were assimilated into blue. After Guyi broke several chains, his movements became faster. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen chains were assimilated into blue. However, there were too many chains sealing Hell, more than tens of millions. At this speed, it would take at least 2 or 3 hours for Guyi to break all the seals here. Even though Old Carter and Johnny were extremely anxious, they could only watch helplessly, and there was no way at all. A sealed place somewhere on the earth. Odin's eldest daughter, the goddess of death, Hela, looked at the person in front of her with a slightly sluggish expression. There was an indescribable fear in the depths of her eyes. Yan. Hela hesitated for a long time, but did not finish her words. Her body began to tremble involuntarily. If it were not for the support of the sealing chains, she would have fallen to her knees now. Hela, I will make a deal with you. Hearing what the other party said, Hela's eyes reappeared madness and hatred. She looked at the person in front of her with interest, and the fear in her heart turned into excitement. If she could gain a foothold under this man, then the achievements she made would not be something that Asgard could stop. It is my honor to serve you, my lord. Hela looked at the person with a piercing look and shouted loudly. Very good, Hela, your freedom has come. Chapter 25. So Qin Luo took a different approach and infused the power of the Thunder God's breath into it in the way of developing offline. Then he would wait to harvest endless power. Both Thor and Jane Fords have great potential, and the benefits they will bring to Qin Luo in the future will definitely be considerable. The two gained power, and Qin Luo gained feedback. This win-win situation is simply too good. As for Loki, there is no need to say more about this guy. He is the same as old Carter. After getting the power of ghosts and gods, whenever they fight against the enemy, the souls they harvest will become the nutrients of ghosts and gods. At the same time, ghosts and gods will also feed back these nutrients to Qin Luo. Thank you, Uncle Qin. This is really the coolest and best gift I have ever received in my life. Jane Fords stroked the Thunderblade Thousand Blades, her heart pounding, and the whole person was shrouded in happiness, especially the power filled in her body, which gave her an unprecedented sense of security. Z.Br You're welcome. Work hard, the stronger you are. It's also a good thing for me. Qin Luo waved his hand, smiled and said. At this time, Thor finally calmed down Thor's hammer and came to Jane Fortes, feeling the power of the other party, which was not much different from his own. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart, and the idea of becoming stronger kept emerging. As a man with male chauvinism, Thor really couldn't stand the fact that his woman was as strong as himself. Qin Luo saw Thor's complicated eyes and his stronger body. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise slightly, which was the effect he wanted. You two have obtained new weapons. Don't you want to try it? Especially you, Thor. When Loki helped you awaken the power of Thor, he obviously mixed a lot of personal emotions. Qin Luo glanced at Loki, who was full of envy and jealousy, and smiled at Thor and Jane Fortes. Chapter 478 Special Induction. Destructive breath. You are bad. May Parker sat next to Qin Luo, watching the scene of the couple beating up his brother-in-law, and couldn't help but speak. No, it's just that guy's own fault. If Loki didn't play so big, Thor wouldn't be like this. Qin Luo smiled and shrugged, saying nonchalantly, Hey, Loki, run faster. The hammer is about to hit your butt. Ganada's face was flushed with excitement at this time. She kept waving her arms and shouting loudly. This little girl is a typical person who likes to watch the fun. Long Kui didn't show any special emotions, but the slightly raised corners of her mouth were enough to represent a lot of things. Loki really wanted to cry at this time. His original strength was enough to suppress Thor, but Thor, who awakened the power of Thor, plus the blessing of the new Thor's hammer, has soared in strength. The two are back to the latest starting line, and now with the addition of Jane Fords, who is not much weaker than Thor, even if he did not really work hard, it's also made Loki miserable. He can only use the power of magic to keep running away, and he dare not have any thoughts of resistance. On the earth, the little spider who returned to school couldn't calm down to study. His mind was still full of scenes from the battle with the Dark Elves. Parker, where have you been these days? Your temperament has changed a lot, and it's become a little scary. The little black fat man Ned came to the little spider and said timidly. Hearing this, the little spider suddenly came back to his senses and looked at Ned beside him with some surprise. He didn't expect that his good friend would have such a keen perception. He could detect the change in his breath. Even he himself only sensed his changes after Venom reminded him. After all, after killing so many Dark Elves, it was inevitable that the little spider would have murderous aura. However, this murderous aura was very difficult to detect when he was not angry. I really don't understand why Ned could find it. This little black fat guy is not simple. I remember vaguely hearing Brother Qin say that this little guy is a person with special talents. Venom's voice rang in the bottom of the little spider's heart. After a moment of stunned silence, Spider-Man seemed to remember something. Brother Qin seemed to have said so, but looking at his good friend, apart from the temperament of a fat otaku, he really didn't feel any special temperament. However, the fact that the other party could tell his changes in one sentence was enough to explain a lot of things. Just when Spider-Man wanted to say something to cover up, he suddenly found that Ned's face changed drastically and pointed to the sky not far away. He looked a little panicked. Spider-Man hurriedly looked back. As a result, he found that the blue sky and white clouds were still there, and there was no special change at all. What's wrong, Ned? Did you feel something? Spider-Man looked at Ned and asked with concern. At this time, he didn't know why he had a bad feeling in his heart. I don't know, I just feel so scared suddenly. as if something bad was coming. Ned shook his head, cold sweat oozing from his forehead, and his face was full of fright. If Ned hadn't just said his changes, Spider-Man might not care about Ned's reaction, but Spider-Man had to take Ned's perception seriously. He closed his eyes slightly, and his observation haki burst out together with his spider sense. He carefully sensed the direction that Ned was pointing. At this moment, Spider-Man immediately noticed it. The hair on his arms stood up involuntarily, and an indescribable panic and fear surged into his heart. He felt a breath, a very terrifying breath. If he used a word to describe that breath, it would be destruction. The breath of destruction made his soul tremble involuntarily. "Ned, please ask for leave for me, please." Spider-Man gritted his teeth, grabbed his school bag and rushed directly into the back alley of the school. Soon, the Spider-Man wearing a spider suit and with wings behind him flew up. He flew quickly towards the apartment. Spider-Man now knew his own weight very well, and he did not choose to find out by himself. Instead, he prepared to seek a wave of support. After all, most of the people in the apartment were back now. With them, Spider-Man's trembling from his soul could be alleviated. While rushing out of the school, Spider-Man immediately contacted everyone in the hero apartment. After hearing the news, everyone also took action. May Parker put on his battle suit with a little excitement. He handed some trivial matters to Happy and rushed out of Stark Tower. Hawkeye, who was being intimate with his girlfriend, got the news about Spider-Man and had no choice but to apologize to his girlfriend and left. It didn't take long for Spider-Man to return to the hero apartment. At this time, the captain, the two Green Goblins and Roxanne were already in the council hall of the apartment. "Peter, what happened to make you so nervous?" The captain looked at Spider-Man and asked with a frown. He knew Spider-Man's strength, and the things that could make him so nervous were definitely not trivial. At least on Earth, it would not be a trivial matter. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.